Welcome to OHBPOVPodcast. Sean Dennis, Rusty McGibney, as you know. My daughter, I'm blessed to have my daughter, Bridget Dennis. She's a very, very famous attorney down in Tampa, Florida.
Please stop.
Well, to me anyway. Very proud of her, and she's here for the weekend. I've asked her to grace our presence with her participating in the podcast. She has got the same struggle I do today. As you know, I never know what the topic is. Bridget doesn't either today. So we're going to get mine and my daughter's reaction live on the spot as we learn whatever the topic is. Now, I will preface this with saying that you probably missed a podcast because we didn't upload one, because Rusty got me so upset the last time with the topic that I wasn't comfortable uploading the podcast. I didn't want to embarrass my kids. So I held it back. So I'm going to try, especially with Bridget here today, to let her do a little more talking so you can compare her reactions to some of the mine that you've seen in the past to see if you see any similarities or if she's grown smarter than me and become less like me as we've grown. So, with that said, Mr. McGibney, will you share with my daughter and I what our topic is today?
First, though.
Oh, my God. You will never answer a question when you ask me. Never answer it and then talk. He has to talk for 20 minutes.
It's a free country.
See? I'm expressing my First Amendment rights.
Okay.
Okay. Since we do have, 2/3 of the podcast today are people of the legal profession.
I am not a lawyer.
I know you're not. The
Okay.
legal profession.
I have a Juris Doctorate in law.
There you go.
I am a doctor. From now on, you can refer to me as Dr. Dennis. Go ahead.
Oh, my God. Okay. All right. That doorway needs to be widened a little bit now.
True.
So, how many attorneys does it take to screw in a light bulb?
At least 3.
At least 3. You are correct.
I know.
1 to climb the ladder, 1 to shake the ladder, and 1 to sue the ladder company.
There you go.
Yes,
funny.
yes.
Yeah.
Now, of the 1,500 odd people that were killed on the Titanic, 4 were listed as attorneys. But do you know the most tragic part of it all?
They survived.
No.
Oh, okay.
There weren't more.
Oh, okay.
Let's kill them off. I get it. Yeah.
Now, this will be the last one. What's the difference between God and a lawyer?
Not much.
God doesn't think he's a lawyer. Okay. All right. That said, topic for this week. Something I'm sure both of you. Well, you
See how you're
not
sweating?
So much
It's like you never know.
It's the anticipation.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It would be nice to
it's
get an
fine.
answer.
No, it's part of it. I get it.
Yeah. Student loans and the
Interesting.
government paying them off.
Okay, so you've researched this, so you can answer some of my questions.
I'm bringing up topics, but you can go ahead and ask.
Your
I'll see
job
what I
is
can
supposed
do.
to be the one that
Well,
has.
I don't know what questions you may ask. They may not be
Did
something
you
that
do any research on your topic at all?
a little.
I did all of my job. All I have to do is react, and I'm doing that right now.
Okay.
So what I know is very little. I've heard my sons talk to me a little bit about it, Dalton, and I've heard a little bit about it, but I don't really watch kind of news that gives you that kind of information, so I really don't know. My question to Dalton was, because I had $1 almost worth of school loans between me and all my kids. Okay, my undergrad was paid for football, but I had to get student loans for law school. Okay, and then I did a lot of Parent Plus loans for the kids. So, and I can tell you that about 6 months ago, I was on with Hazel doing the FAFSA, filling out everything to help her get some loans and grants and stuff like that to do her education. And I have to pull my account as her dad in order to put my financial information in for her. And I pulled mine up, and it showed my school loans.
Drum roll, please.
0.
Well,
Completely gone.
that's not right.
That's awesome for me. But my question is,
and that is
Incorrect.
Okay,
the reason for
no. My
the
question is,
podcast.
what they're talking about now, about what is happening now, are they going to, should I be worried about that going back on my,
I don't think once it's been
you got to
done,
put that back on, I'm going to have to be responsible again? They're going to be able to reinstate it?
I think administratively they're having a really hard time
Justifying it.
sorting through who owes what and how they have to pay it back. I wouldn't trust that.
Well, it
I
is
guess-
it is the FAFSA website, and I have taken pictures. but
Good.
But what I'm saying is that I really don't. I wish we knew more about that, because I'm very curious. Am I right? Also, do I understand that what they're doing is that the loans that had been deferred or stopped on, now they're reinstating, where people have to start paying again?
Yes.
That's the big deal,
It
right?
depends.
Okay, so tell us.
No, I don't.
I mean, tell us what you know.
Not much, because we're being told so many different things. So I know someone who their loans were deferred for really
Not
not
forgiven,
a clear
just
reason,
deferred.
where they didn't have to pay monthly until a few months ago. They got an
new
email
notice.
saying that you're gonna have to start paying, and then shortly after that, they got another notice saying they're deferred another 3 months or 4 months,
Until
whatever
they
it was.
figure it out.
No, but they have a job. They have. I understood they were on the same repayment plan that I was.
Are you
They're
on the
not.
income based?
I'm whatever.
I mean, you don't have to share
least of,
publicly.
Yeah. I go through them and I figure out what the best plan is for me to pay the least amount of money, and that's what I'm on. I think it's called pay as you earn, but don't quote me. Whatever I used to be on, I paid very little in comparison to some of my friends. Something happened with it recently. I think that the Supreme Court may have ruled against a certain repayment plan that maybe I was on, and my payments shot up like 20 times what I was paying.
But you didn't get a notice explaining how that mathematically occurred. I mean, how they arrived at that.
Not with any kind of sense.
Clarity.
Or clarity. No.
So what I've heard is that there's going to be 3 new options. I don't know what those are now, but the current administration is now saying that they're going to give you 3 different options, but you got to start paying. I just don't know what those are. Did you do any of your research?
I think some of that is just as what she was explaining there, that they're still in the process of
Well, how do
coming
they
up with
expect
that, but
people to
they're
start paying again or increase their payment when they're not explaining it?
But they can go
True.
to what they were paying. So
I don't think so.
Payment
I
plan
think-
that they were
I
on.
think-
Let him talk.
I think she's right in that. I think what happened is Biden administration did a lot of shit that the Supreme Court's having trouble
Approving.
supporting.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if they have to approve it. He did it by executive order.
but
So I don't know that they have
The
to
Supreme
approve
Court
it,
can
but they have
shoot
to
it down.
yeah. I don't know.
But see that's some of the controversy, because it was the suspension was done by executive order, and there
The
was
deferments,
yes,
which I think were fine because COVID and there were different things that
Yes.
supported that.
Yeah, interest free too.
and
Yeah.
and that's
well, it should have been.
yeah, that's why Trump is reinitiating them so that those payments can start. Now, to me, what always seemed the most unfair was the amount of interest that they charged.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
ridiculous.
that
should be.
is.
It should be none.
Well, it's
It should,
like,
if the government's going to do that, if they want their money back, okay, but they shouldn't be trying to make money off of kids.
well, but I mean, it can be little, a 3%, not a 12.
I
or
thought it
what
was
is it,
like
12
3.
or 15?
It depends on the loan, but mine average is out, I think, to more than 15%.
Oh, yeah, and that's
At least the a big chunk of my loans have the higher.
and
Maybe
that
not
is-
15%. Maybe a little lower than that, but a lot.
But that's
of my-
outrageous.
It is.
It's absolutely
I have a
outrageous.
big-
And
a
all of
bunch
that
that are
interest should be
12%.
forgiven.
But
Yeah,
but
well,
now
They can do that.
Our money has to have value. The value of what the government did for you by providing these loans, there has to be a little something in there. So 3%, I think get you skin in the game and the ability to say to the U.S. government,
okay,
thank
agree.
you.
I mean, we both agree with you. I mean, it should be a lower.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
I'm logging on to mine to see actually.
Okay,
what
I
my
appreciate
interest rate
that.
is.
Now, while you're looking,
I thought you were just getting bored with podcasts.
her
Not yet.
generation, she's a millennial. She's like close to into Gen X, but she's a millennial. So, in their life experience, they don't know life without anything but low 3 and 4% interest rates. My mom and dad bought their house on Mulberry Street, 10.5%. I mean, that's what
my
they
house
bought.
was more than 3%.
But it's not 10 and 12% like it
No,
was during
but-
our.
My sister, when she moved back to Mount Vernon in 1980, she got divorced, came back here. I think I was all of 17 years old, and Rick Bonnet and I drove the biggest.
God bless his soul.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
U-Haul truck up to Lima, where she was living, and loaded everything she had and came back down here. She found a place there on Syker Road, and her interest rate through I think it what's the farm home, I think it was 18%.
Yeah, I mean, bad credit people back
No,
then. I mean, the first house I bought, I think it was 12.5% up on Emmett Drive. Okay, but the difference was between their generation and ours is that our house values were substantially lower compared to because the interest rates are so low, it's given the housing the opportunity to jack up the values of the houses to still get the maximum amount of payment they can get out of them because their interest rate's so low.
I take back the 15%. I don't know where I got that. Maybe it feels like that because it compounds. But my highest is 7.6%, and that's on the majority of what I owe.
Well, that's better, but that's still, it should be a 2 or 3%, if anything.
Yeah.
I mean, we're arguing it should be free, period. I mean, I don't give a shit. Listen, I don't really care how the universities pay their professors. Okay? So,
That's a whole nother
no,
conversation.
but the government giving free education, I think the government would probably spend less with the universities going that route than all the grants and the subsidies and everything the government gives them all now anyway.
Well, now, okay, let me
and let the
ask
kids go through college without having any debt coming out.
This question will definitely appeal to you, but I want your opinion too. So,
Well, I'll let her give hers first because mine's probably out.
Doubtful.
well, so
We'll see.
looking at where we are now with technology, and you've got kids going to high school and taking
She
college.
doesn't, but we understand.
I understand taking college courses.
There are kids going to high school.
Yes. Taking college courses in high school, getting college credits. So, what do you think of all the information that's on the internet? I mean, you could literally get a degree by just watching videos,
Absolutely.
doing
Probably a better degree.
research. I
Okay.
would definitely
Okay,
say because you would learn.
You're
in
right.
the
I have a
manner from-
huge opinion here, and I also have an idea that I've been wanting to throw out there. Go ahead.
I haven't finished the full question. So, I feel, my opinion, I would like to see this happen, but where you get these things, all this study, research, and everything that you do on your own, and then the state allows you could, whatever state you're in, gives you the ability to pass a test to get that degree.
Okay.
So you're not going to
I
a
love the
university.
question, and I have an answer pre-thought for that I
No, go
have
ahead.
been. No. I want to hear yours first. I don't want to influence your answer.
I think that's a great idea. I think that, especially with all of the information that is online and how easy you can access it with ChatGPT and Grok, and all the other large language,
models.
AI models. I think that's very doable. But we were just talking a few days ago, maybe it was yesterday, about how I don't think that a college experience is really about the education that you receive. I think it's much more than that. I think it's absolutely the social part of it that is a big reason why they push college on us so much. And also because employers are now requiring everyone basically to have a college degree. And I don't know how that would play into it if employers would be on board with that, with someone learning everything on their own and taking a test. I know that there are some states, actually only a couple now, where you don't even have to go to law school. You don't have to have a law degree. You can...
Not yet. There's 2 states that are a couple years away from it. They've already approved it, but it hasn't started yet. One of them is where they have to have 2 years of internship.
You didn't hear what I said. I think that you're talking about not having to take the bar exam.
Okay.
I'm saying you don't have to have a law degree. I think that you
can study at all.
To take the bar exam without a law degree. I'm going to double check that.
Well, they didn't teach me anything in law school how to take the bar exam.
I mean, same, really.
And you went to a stellar school.
Yeah,
there would have been a more likelihood that
it was more
Stetson would have taught you a guided knowledge than where I went.
It was more so how to train your brain to think like a lawyer. Think like a lawyer.
Yeah. What if they spent 3 years teaching you how to pass the bar exam?
Well, because what they test on the bar exam really isn't that helpful for when you're a lawyer.
Thank you. So why do you have to pass the bar exam?
Listen.
It's an old.
We can get to that if you want.
You have that. It's just the man keeping control.
All it is it's hazing. It's hazing. The older generation says, I took the bar exam.
You have to.
I was miserable for 10 weeks. You have to enter into this club.
Despite the fact that what you learn in law school isn't what the bar exam tests. Despite the fact that what the bar exam test has nothing to do with being a lawyer. Very little to do with being. More about shit that doesn't apply to actual practice.
Well, and also a lot of people are very specialized in their practice, a lot of attorneys. So, I mean, they didn't test bankruptcy on the bar exam.
So it's just a pass through. It's just like you explained. It's just
because everyone else did it. Yeah. They're still requiring
you shouldn't be allowed to
do it.
So same thing in medical.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking everything that you guys were just saying.
I don't know about medical, but that's a way more practical
and all that stuff. It's about mirroring.
Yeah,
the same thing. You go through the same.
I think the medical
you
learn how to diagnose things. You learn the body. You learn. I think there's a lot more things in a medical degree that you have to learn.
Well, true. Yes.
Okay. So passing, I don't know what's it called to be a doctor. Whatever that test is, they have to pass. Whatever it is.
That entry into medical school.
I don't have personal knowledge, but I get the impression that has a lot more applicable information and knowledge requirements than what the bar exam does to be a lawyer.
We would hope.
Well, you wouldn't know.
We would hope.
Ask her. Mm-hmm. She's graduated a top law school and passed the bar on her first try. Mm-hmm. So, let me answer the question. So I've thought for a long time, when I was a junior in high school, I already had my own construction company. I was already filing taxes before I left for college. When I went to college, I had a crew back here. I went to college in another state. I had a crew back here still running jobs that I was running, didn't have cell phones. I'd run off the dormitory phone, talking to people, and talking to my workers and stuff. Okay, now I didn't stay in a dorm long and at my own place, but I had a phone in my apartment that I would do that with. Without the technology, I did all that. Okay, so I was just getting through high school, just again to go the traditional process of getting a high school. I learned math. Okay, and I learned reading. Okay, now I'm a slow reader because of problems with my eyes and how my brain works. Okay, I struggle, but I know how to read. I know how to do all those things. I knew how to do all that 5th grade. Okay, so what did I do from 5th grade to 12th grade? What did I learn? Not much. And I certainly didn't learn anything that they taught me in college, other than math and knowing how to read a book. Okay? So I'm not sure, and I think there are kids right now, I don't know how they do it, but I hear about kids in high school taking college courses already. Why can't they? Why are you not, if you're 12 years old and smart enough to start taking college classes, why do you have to finish high school? Because they say so?
I know someone's daughter who graduated high school with over a 6.3 something GPA.
How'd that work?
Wow.
They
How's
take
that happen?
AP college courses that are weighted more, and they still didn't get into one of the bigger schools in Florida.
Wow.
Even with like a 6 point in active, it's so
I don't know what that, I have
competitive.
no idea what that means. Explain.
What?
What did get in what school? What's
UF,
competitive?
University of Florida.
Just to a college. Just
University
into a
of
college.
Florida.
But
Yes, with that
University
high of a
of
high
Florida.
school.
I'm trying
the
just
basic,
a
like
basic college.
OSU.
No, University of Florida is like top.
No.
Top
But
school in
I'm
the country.
saying not a law school, not a
I'm talking about from high school.
graduate school. I'm just saying they didn't even get into a top ranked college.
They got into many other great colleges, but it's extremely competitive is my point. High school students graduating and wanting to go to these, better ranked schools that may cost a little bit more. Or
They're
not.
supposed to
Even
give you a
state-
better education, arguably,
well,
right?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't think so. I mean,
Because I don't know what they teach you that you really use much of.
I don't know. My point is high school students these days, as far as I know, at least in Florida, are expected to take AP and college courses when they're in high school still in order to have a better resume to get into college,
Do you believe?
which I never did because I don't think East Knox even.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Do you believe East Knox has anything like that going on right now? Anything? No way. I have no idea, but I would bet money that they don't.
I would say it's, if anything, it would be like one or two classes.
College course classes, yes.
Yeah.
Because there's
Maybe through
kid
COTC.
from, and he might be.
That's a technical school. That's a whole different discussion that we need to have.
No,
but-
there's a kid. I think he's going to Danville, and he's taking NAS courses, and will be going to the NAS here when he graduates.
But
And
here's my
junior.
question. It basic, boiled down. Why do you have to spend 4 years in high school if you don't need, if you're already smart enough at 16, why do you have to finish high school?
You just take your GED, I think, and then. But the
Then
thing
go
is,
get- you can still get in college. Yes, you can.
but it'd be extremely difficult, I think, to get
Well,
into a good college
Okay.
having not graduated high school.
Let's take the elite.
You can graduate early, absolutely.
Okay, let's take the well that would
People
be
do it
an
all the
option
time.
too. Let's take the elite college. Just say the majority of the colleges. If somebody's not trying to get into an elite school, Harvard or Florida or whatever you're talking about, I don't know, Harvard, Florida, even though it's the same, but
UF is not Ivy League, but it's
that's
a
what I'm saying.
very great school.
But if you don't care, let's presume you don't. You just want to go to college.
Then you just finish high school early.
Okay, is that allowed?
Yes.
You could do that
But
now.
yes, you can.
And
pass,
you could get into college.
But that's the thing. You have to, in the state of Ohio at least, you have to have a high school education.
But you can homeschool
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and get a high school.
Your GED.
No, it's not a GED.
Well-
you can homeschool and get a diploma. It's not a GED. It's not the same thing. Okay.
Okay.
Well, it's not. Look it up.
Okay, that's fine. That's
while you're
fine.
on TV using your phone.
I'm trying to find something here.
On TV. Oh my gosh.
Oh, you know what?
It's cute.
That's that's what the OHB is. Old has-beens.
Thinking that YouTube
Point of view.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my perception is very different than yours. A big reason why you came up here this weekend for me is to help me kind of get caught up with your generation of knowledge I don't have. So I really don't know the answers to these questions. I'm not trying to be coy about it. I just don't
I
think.
don't think we think you're trying to be coy.
I don't think anybody. I don't
that
think
way.
anybody should have to finish high school on the world's pace or the country's pace. I think if I want to go to high school year round, not take my summers off, and take classes year round.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be forced to have to homeschool, although I guess you could. But you should be allowed to take classes.
I hear about people in the news all the time about how they graduated from high school at 15.
I do too, but I don't know how that. I don't know how.
17.
I don't know how that's because when I went to high school, I wasn't allowed.
Well, we also live in Mount Vernon, Ohio.
No, you don't.
There's
What I'm saying is,
You were raised here.
yes, and I think it's different in different parts of the country. They care more about
So,
education.
so compared to Florida to here, how do you see that
Florida
difference?
it's way more serious.
High school level even?
Yes,
Okay. So
at least in certain districts, the people
sure,
that I know
mean,
now.
Yeah, I'm not. You can't know everything at every school. but
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I think that Florida public school generally is comparable in ranking to Ohio schools. Maybe, I don't know. I looked up rankings of the different high schools that me and my friends went to one time, and it was pretty funny. That how far East Knox was down the list, but I don't really know what they look at and the factors that they review for that. Anyways, what's your question?
I don't know.
There is.
what did I ask?
I was just gonna.
Oh, if it's serious, if it's more serious in Florida in high school
Well,
than it is
the
in
caliber.
Ohio.
Well, here's the real question. The real question is, today's world. When I grew up in high school, you couldn't finish early. I wanted to be done as a sophomore. I was done. Had it with high school. I was over. How do I make money? What do I do? Thank God they gave me a summer off that year, and I figured it out. And I wasn't going back to a factory working midnight shift. Now, let me finish. I was not allowed. I asked. I tried. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. This is gospel truth.
It's a long time ago, though.
That's what I'm
But
saying.
did you
I
have
don't know.
the credits? That's the thing. You had to have.
I
the
wasn't
amount of
allowed
credits.
to take more classes. I wanted to take more classes. I wanted to take classes through summer. I wanted to finish early.
I think you would not have done that.
They
because
said
of,
no.
because of football.
No, maybe that might be true.
Yeah.
But that's different from my perspective of what my kids should be held to, in what requirements are actually out there. I might not be sitting here broken, beat down, and this pain that I'm in had I been able to not have to go back to high school for 2 years and chosen not to play football.
You would have just gone to
College and play football.
And play football.
Well, I've been 2 years less of
and
beating on my body.
your brain would have been like 2 years lesser developed at that time.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and
Which might have been worse.
Here's why I respect youth way more, and it's that you guys were kids and raised. I've always told you age shouldn't matter. You guys could accomplish anything. I believe that the youth brain should be running our country. I think the younger people should be in Congress. And big problem with our country is all these old ass brains. Forget the people. Their brains they're out of touch with reality, and making too much money and too proud to admit it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I believe in the youth, and I didn't want any of my kids to think that you couldn't do something because you're young.
Yeah, I never thought that.
Well, good, but the point I'm trying to make is I don't think that kids should be pressed through a structured system until a certain age. I think they should be able to test out when they start high school to see what grade level they're at.
I think.
And if you start high school and you test out and you're at junior high school level, you should be able to start junior high school classes. Why are you held back in a class full of 20 kids that 5 of them are idiots, and that's why the other 20 or other 15?
Why?
I'm asking.
Because, I think that kids have the opportunity to do that.
They do now. Because they did not when we went to school.
At least Evan, he told me his school, there were smart classes and not so smart classes, but they were more advanced, and also, and with that, I'm pretty sure you could have taken, you could have skipped I don't know, algebra 2 and just gone straight to whatever's next.
Not when we went to school.
I did. I skipped.
Okay.
I skipped algebra 1.
Algebra 1.
I don't know
all
how
got
though
through,
because
yes.
I had terrible math, but somehow I skipped algebra 1 and jumped into algebra 2. So it's possible even back then. So now, also though, I think that early on, especially middle school and early high school, to ask a 12-year-old kid or even 11-year-old kid to skip to a grade that's a bunch of 13. Listen,
I'm not asking him to do it. Go ahead. I'm saying if you choose to, but go ahead. I'm not saying force kids to.
Okay, I think that socially it's something that a parent might sit back and think twice about, because putting like a 12-year-old kid in a class full of 14-year-olds might not be the best socially for the 12-year-old. That's all I'm saying.
Agreed.
Well,
I don't dispute that.
You have the historic documents already that are out there. You know, you have from Texas, you've got that 13-year-old kid that went straight on to college.
Yeah.
You know, Sheldon Cooper.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, but I think people should be allowed to do that. I think they should be allowed to do it more. I don't think it should be.
But it does happen in real life.
It does.
Yeah, but I don't think
actually
it should
does,
be an extraordinary story. I think that should be more normal and more commonplace than it is.
I also think it depends on the school and what they freaking
I
teach.
think it depends on the kids. Yeah, I agree with you.
Because
But shouldn't there be
think
a test that you take going into high school? Shouldn't there be? You have to take a test now to get out of high school, right? Isn't there a?
the Ohio graduation thing, you have to take a sophomore year.
Okay, but you have to take a test to be able to graduate high
Well,
school.
your
don't
exams
think
at the
so.
end of the year, but
Florida, you
it's
do.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think you're wrong.
honestly.
I didn't have to take anything.
No,
serious.
not now.
But
Now,
your
this
grades
is how
have
the-
to be passing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but-
think that's all that matters.
But
right?
what Bridget's saying is you could have a school in Baltimore that they're passing kids that test out on that national test at 10 and the rest of the fucking country's at 50.
Well,
And they still pass because that's
but-
what Baltimore
but-
ranks that is passing. Do you see
and
what I'm saying?
That's the
So their grades at
fallacy
one
of-
high school, very different than grades at a different high school.
That's the fallacy of education across the United States.
Yeah, it's-
You have, instead of trying to raise the bar, so to speak, and have everybody learn the same, because the United States were used to be, people didn't move more than 50 miles away from where they were born. Now it's, as soon as they graduate, they're, in another state for college, and then almost never come back until maybe when they get older and they want to set down roots. And
What's your point on?
Well,
you're losing me a little bit.
it's just the whole country's a mixing pot. So why not bring the level up to where not Baltimore has, this, because that's what the classification or the
Okay.
class
Can-
of
can
people
I-
are.
Yeah,
Can
go
I
ahead.
answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
So
Yeah.
in Ohio, it's changed over time, but students entering ninth grade on or after July 2019 are required to earn proficiency scores on Algebra 1 and English 2 end of course tests.
And if they don't,
The OG
they don't graduate.
I mean, yeah, but that's because you failed English. It's not because you didn't. I mean, these are just classes that everyone has to take. It's not like a big OGT, which is what I was talking about. That I'm pretty sure I took my sophomore year. That you have to pass to demonstrate competency in English and math, actually, and there were other things too. There's also the ACT and SAT, but you don't have to pass those to graduate high
Those are
school.
the dumbest
So you
fucking
make-
things I ever took. Those questions were the dumbest questions I've ever taken on any kind of test ever in my life. They didn't ask me what 2 + 2 was. They asked me if a train left Boston at 4 o'clock.
Well, that's just critical
it was
thinking.
Just stupid.
But it's
No.
it's
No, it
very
wasn't.
it's all no, Dad.
How,
there's
why
reasonings
did
for
those?
it.
How did those things control whether a kid should get to go to college or not?
If you can critically think, I mean, if you can analyze the problem.
But if
and
they
you
can't
can-
critically think, don't they deserve for somebody to teach them how to fucking critically think? Because obviously somebody hadn't at that point.
No,
Unfortunately, they don't have you as a father.
Yeah. I've said this forever, that common sense can be taught. It is not inherent.
Yeah.
You teach
That's an experience.
critical thinking.
I don't think you force it down their throat, but I think their life experiences give them common sense. They see it, feel it, experience
But you
it.
can teach it.
I don't
but
know how,
there's
how
so
do you
many-
Putting them in
explain, how do you
situations.
explain that?
There-
You
there's
put
so
them in
yeah,
many
living it.
situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
kids that today, this is their experience in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The majority of
Yeah,
them.
yeah. So you've got to
Take them out, show the
Here,
world.
here's my question. Okay, in 10 years, will there be schools? Will there be public schools?
Yes, of course, Dad.
There'll be public schools.
public schools, yes. Colleges, I think everything is going to go online. They just that's why I was
Why
looking
wouldn't
up.
it all go on?
Well,
Everything.
This is the thing. There are colleges right
Sports.
now that are raising tuition
Glad you brought that up.
just to be able to maintain the physical
Because so many less
structure.
people are coming in.
Kenyon College,
Despite the fact that they got billions.
some do.
Kenyon does.
Kenyon's got some money, but
Some money. They built a city. They built a covered, climate-controlled town within their campus.
Okay, let's just
So
Kenyon's rich.
so they
All right.
they
Yeah,
went
extraordinary.
and not what you think. They're in very deep financial trouble
I
right
don't
now
believe it.
because, well, let me say they just raised their tuition rate to $89,600.
Well, that's because they're selective,
It-
and they are a niche school.
Yes.
And
That
I got
does
news
not
for you.
justify $89,000.
No. I'm not saying they. You're not letting me finish, Dad.
You don't let anyone finish either. So
Well, okay. Well, I lost my thought. That's why it's
But-
not letting me finish.
$89,000.
Yeah, maybe instead of raising the tuition to the kids, maybe they lower the fucking payrolls of all these elite fucking professors that are getting fucking stupid ass, retarded money to be able to brainwash these kids without even really giving them the education they deserve. Maybe they ought to start figuring out how to cut instead of raise prices.
To me, they need to do away with tenure.
Oh yeah.
100%.
That
And the
is
term limits of the government, you get rid of tenure at the universities. Agreed, totally.
because
Done deal.
it's.
Do
God,
your
I don't-
generation agree with that? Get
Well-
rid of tenure and get rid of put in term limits for
I don't know how
Congress.
my generation feels about
well,
tenure.
as a representative of your generation.
I would say that getting rid of tenure.
What do you
would
understand
be
tenure to
fine.
be?
Would you let her answer the question,
No, I
please?
want to know if she knows what tenure means.
No, it's okay. I'm used to it.
And
tenure
she
is a
holds
basic-
her own. She doesn't need your help.
Tenure is basically if you get tenure, you can't really be fired for
Can't be
much.
fired, yeah.
And you
you're
know
paid
how much
good.
you're going to get paid, and it's going to increase, and you get time off to write books
No
and
matter how good a
to
job you
write
do.
papers, and it's really really difficult to be fired once you make tenure.
And you don't care anymore.
And
So-
I think that I had a few professors at Mount that were fantastic, and they were tenured professors. But Mount was different; it was a great school. But
And I wouldn't say that's the majority of, in my experience.
at FSU apparently the professor wouldn't even teach. They would have their teaching assistant show up and like flip through a
And
PowerPoint.
they're still getting paid.
And flip through a PowerPoint.
Yeah,
And if
that's
you
bizarre.
couldn't like go and meet with your professor, maybe in the higher level classes once you were in your major, like junior, senior year, the classes were kind of smaller. But as far as I understand, it was like an auditorium, 200 kids a class, didn't even have to show up. If you did show up, it was a PowerPoint that was taught by the JA. You couldn't even meet with the professor. It was really difficult to meet with the professor. That's how I understood. That's generally how bigger schools, how I understand, operate.
I was not.
So no, I don't agree with tenure.
Okay.
I guess that's my answer.
Do you also agree with term limits would be helpful?
Yes, duh.
Obviously.
Or
Okay.
just cut them off at like 65 or 70.
Whatever.
And say you can't be a
However
representative
that's
after
structured. Yeah, that's
70
it.
years old.
Term limits or an age limit.
Both.
It's hard to argue the age thing because some people at 70 are articulate and able. Well, some, but versus others. So I think there's probably an age where if you
Sure.
want to keep going, you need to pass some kind of standardized.
I don't know about that.
Review or
That
something.
seems a little.
Well, I mean,
No, I think that you just have to like.
Well,
look
how
at
do
the
you
studies
justify
and
that
you have to figure
constitutionally
out
without it
when-
being discrimination against age?
That's the whole issue, right? I mean, you can't.
Yeah, I mean, how do you do that? That's what I'm asking.
Well, to some extent, it can be.
I agree with
like
you.
a lot
How do
of-
you do it?
Like a lot of professions, that
You can sue
the
them for age
the
discrimination, too.
military. You how much good are you at on the battlefield at 65 years old?
And you also, you have to be like 43 years old to be able to be president.
Yes.
35.
35? I thought it was 45, but then I went to 43.
Do your little fucking.
Okay.
I'll do it. So there are limitations.
What's the age?
AOC's going to run for
United
president.
States?
Check how old she is.
No, God, he's right.
I know,
Jiminy
right.
Christmas.
AOC.
I'm not as
That is-
dumb as I look. Now, let me
She's
say.
35.
Yeah, that's why she's going to run for president in 2028.
Who?
AOC.
Oh.
Mark
oh
it
God.
down.
Oh my God.
Just mark it down.
Okay.
I'm not saying I support it. I'm just telling you what's going to happen. That's my prediction. Okay? Here's the thing. All of this arguing I'm doing about the rights that kids should have, I was not smart enough to ever test out of high school or test out of college. I mean, she's right. I probably would have stayed for sports, and I wanted my summers to do my own thing. And
Was your mom more wanting you to stay in school?
my mom never had an opinion. I never, a word was never said. If I said to my mom, I'm not going to school today, she wouldn't have to say a word. Her eyebrow would just, one eyebrow would kind of go up like this, and I would go get my stuff and head to school. It wasn't an option. Okay, but here's the point I'm trying to make. I think it cheated you. You make a comparison to you and different kids at your school that you went to school with in your grade. Now, you don't have to say a word, but I witnessed it. You were at a different level than a lot of the other kids in the same grade.
I disagree, but what's your point?
The point is there are kids like her that probably could have tested out early. They should have that right. They should be able to do that. And she should have been able to stay in school and still play sports, but be taking college classes. I don't know why they break it down. It's a level of knowledge. Why does
they can do that? They are doing that now.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
But I don't know.
That's why we had you on, because he and I sit here and argue because we don't have a clue most of the time. He's supposed to do the research.
I know confirmation from someone that I just talked to last week that their daughter graduated with a 6 point something from high school because she took college classes.
I'm delighted to know that's an option. So that's good. That makes me feel better. When you talk about employers, I have a very different opinion. Being an employer over decades, employed tens of thousands of people over decades, different states, different locations. I could care less ever if they ever graduated high school. I could care less if they had a Diploma 1, okay? I interviewed the person, and would he either hire that person based on my interview? I mean, do you really believe that aside from big leveled corporations that have structures that require them to do certain things, other than that, everyday employers, small businesses and mid-level companies and employers, you really think that they look at diplomas and grade point averages and hire people based on that?
I need an example of a job because I don't know what you mean.
Pick one. I don't care. Pick anyone you want.
Wendy's or like
pick
a bank teller.
No. Pick out a profession that that you went to college to get. So you're not working at Wendy's.
Oh, like you're an accountant.
That's a CPA. That's
no,
not a
you can be.
Okay.
When you go to college, you have you.
So when you graduate college, you want a job.
Employers absolutely look at.
Let's say you have
GPA.
Let's say you don't have a technical degree.
Yeah,
you have a liberal
science.
arts degree, political science.
Sure.
Degree. Okay. So you don't. That degree doesn't say I'm going to be good at this.
Employers 100% look at GPA.
Really?
Because how else are they going to know?
Because here's why I don't think so. And I'm coming from the perspective of an old guy who was an employer, not an employee. Okay? The only job I ever had, I got fired from. Okay? You figure out on your own why. But I was an employer. Okay? So you see it very differently. I'm smart enough. If I'm running a company, making lots of money, and have lots of employees, I know that this university's grade point average and that university's grade point average may be exact same grade point average, but that school sucks. And employers don't spend their lives researching universities to find out what. Now you get a job from Harvard or Yale, those kind of, take those out. The great 80% of the colleges out there aren't elite. They're just colleges, and you just graduate from them. Okay, there's bullshit colleges, there's elite colleges, and most of them are in between. You get a liberal arts degree from any of those colleges in between. Employers don't know what all those universities, what the caliber of that grade point at that university versus that grade point at that university.
Basically,
I don't agree at all
knowing
with
what you're
that.
saying. In my opinion, I'm going to say it's just the commitment to the 4 years that you.
So you got
go.
a degree. That's
You
all
got
an
a
employer
degree.
really cares about. Ever.
Now, a degree in maybe something.
No,
that
I'm not
is
talking
per-
about a technical degree. I'm
No,
not talking
I
about
know.
an accountant
Some-
or an IT guy, or I'm talking about just a general liberal arts degree to go get a job.
I think it matters on the demand of the employer. So, and also the type of job it is. So, you had a bunch of employees doing service, correct?
And managerial. I mean, what I hired for was managerial. They hired the service. I never got involved in any of that. I hired the managers, the people running the stores,
Okay.
counting the money.
And I bet the majority of the managers that you hired weren't right out of college.
I don't know that I ever asked
Well,
any of them. But you want to know what I want you to think of while you're talking right now? I would say 8 out of 10. At one point, I had 52 stores, 26 states. At one point, 80% of my managers
we're female.
were female.
Yeah, I know.
Why?
Probably because you didn't look at where they went to college. I don't know.
No.
Because we're better.
Listen, I'll tell you why. Let me tell you why. And I don't think it's the case anymore. I think things have flipped. But at the time, females were more driven. They had a chip on their shoulder because they were perceived as inferior somehow in intellect, the same as they were. That's the vets, Corvettes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It echoes weird, right?
Yeah.
They were perceived as inferior because of the biological restraints sometimes.
Definitely not
I mean,
why, but-
that's why there is an WNBA. If there wasn't a WNBA, why would there be a women's league at all? Why would there even be one?
I don't know.
Why wouldn't you just have the NBA and the best people play, male or female? So there's a difference, period. That's my opinion. Okay, so I can lift more than you, but you're smarter than me. And I knew that about females. They had chips on their shoulder because they felt like they had more to prove because people...
Men are more entitled.
They expect more, if that's the
They're
same.
more
if
entitled.
that's
They
the same
expect
thing.
they expect more for doing
So
less.
women worked harder.
Generally speaking,
Work,
stereotypically.
generally
I
speaking,
know. I
worked
agree
harder,
with you.
longer hours, listened better,
Because-
did what you asked them to do and not in one ear and out the other. They were more productive and more reliable than men.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could care less whether they graduated grade school.
Okay.
Okay, that was what I hired people on.
Yeah.
So you hire somebody with the best paperwork in the world, and they get in there, and then they're autistic and a lawyer that doesn't know how to have any people skills to know how to deal with other people.
Well, I don't just look at what's on paper. I think that if it's a highly demanded
I
job,
think that's
what
where
happens?
you get the opportunity to have an interview. Am I wrong?
I think that what a lot of employers do, if it's a job that is highly sought after, what they do is they use the grade point average as okay, we have a giant stack of resumes. Let's just cut them down. Let's just take the top 15%
Minimizes the
of the
opportunity.
of the resumes to narrow it down for that purpose only. I think that if it's somewhere like around here where they're not getting tons of resumes, I think that they would consider not taking that into account as much as if it was a super highly sought after job. I think it just depends.
Okay, in your experience, you don't go into details or names or anything, but in your experience, when you started interviewing for out of law school to law firms.
Yes.
Okay, so how many people I mean, I don't need to know exactly. How many people were interviewing for the same job you were at the time you got your job?
I don't know if any.
2 or 3 or none?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. Because
Okay,
I was
well,
applying specifically for a position.
Let's say generally speaking, based on your experience in the field, how many people usually
Let me explain this.
are interviewed for a job?
I'll explain this, and I think that this will help. So in law school, you have what's called basically after your freshman year, or after your first year of law school.
3 years.
After your
So they
first
know.
year,
But it's 3 years. So the
first of 3 years after your first year of law school, it's called on-campus recruiting, or OCIs, I think is what it's called. Basically the big firms in the area, they're not all big because I got my job through that, but it was a smaller firm. But the bigger firms that pay a lot of money, they come on campus and they interview students.
In person.
You have to
in person.
Sure.
Well,
yes.
I'm asking.
Sometimes it wasn't. Through COVID it wasn't, but for us it was in
well,
person.
forget COVID, okay.
If you were not in the top 10%,
you
didn't even get an interview.
That's my point. That's my problem with what we're talking about. It limits the opportunity where I don't know. I don't have an answer, and I obviously wasn't a professional hiring people in the professional world, but I just think that the best person is not always the person who has the highest GPA.
I completely agree, but I also think it's more of like a liability type thing where you have to justify, like the hiring partners have to justify who they're hiring, and it's a lot harder for them to justify who they're hiring if 6 months down the line after they're hired, the kid's not doing a great job. It's a lot harder for the hiring lawyer to be like, yeah, I know that he only had a 2.5, but I really thought he had it in him, versus this is a 4.0 student. I thought he was going to be a great attorney. It's a lot less, liability on the firm to hire people with better GPAs.
So if they hire somebody that's a dud,
there's many people that have high GPAs that are duds. Yes, of course. Yeah. But they
end up that their defense is, but they had a great GPA. It's not my fault. But did you interview this person?
No, but
did you talk to this person?
Of course they do.
Did you not know that they were autistic before you hired them?
Stop using the word autistic.
Well, that's
an example
of something else that you and I talked about over the weekend, of a different location with a different person, that person was high ranking in a company. How'd they get there? Is what I'm asking.
So,
how did those kind of people? Don't you spend some time and interview these people?
It's called nepotism. It's called they know someone who knows someone at the firm, or their uncle is married to someone in the higher ups. That's how the people that are duds get to where they are.
Okay.
That's your answer.
Okay.
And it happens all the time.
How do you fix that, or you don't?
You don't.
no.
I mean, firms are, employers can put in place certain things, but
it's hard for you, just having what you do for a living. It's hard for you to kind of understand other types of professions. You think that's a good example of the rest too?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you have a corporation, you can have a standard. So, when you put out your rankings as far as a corporation goes in whatever field that you are, you can say that all of your employees had a 4 point, nothing less than a 4.1.
Okay. Yeah, that's great bragging rights. But
yes, exactly.
Sure.
But that those are some standards that's what they live by.
And
so
some firms don't even hire outside of Ivy League schools.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they got into the Ivy League school because who knows why? Because their dad or mom went to the Ivy League school and they donated a bunch of money and they faked a bunch of sporting pictures and pretended like they were going.
That way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it is. I agree with you. I think it's unreasonable to base someone solely on their GPA or where they went to school.
Here's my last example. I'll kind of get off of this because I don't think.
Can I say something before you do?
Sure. I don't think I have a solution.
No,
I probably will.
I think that ultimately, though, the people that are more driven and care about their jobs and are more responsible and are ultimately better attorneys or better whatever profession they're in, ultimately they will end up on top. I do believe that even if you don't enter into the field exactly where you want to be initially, the ones who are more deserving will pass the ones that are duds. And I think it all evens out.
Unless they never get the opportunity to perform.
I just don't think that is the case, though.
You mean people that could perform perfectly fine, but they're not allowed to get paid for it because they don't pass a bar exam?
I thought we were talking about entering into the legal field.
No, entering into any field. Here's my example. I hear what you're saying, but here's my example, okay? I think if you look, Ken Landone, is that his name, that founded and owns Home Depot or founded it?
I'm not sure.
Okay, whatever.
Go ahead.
But there's
How do you not know that?
Listen, there are a number
Go through my
of
Rolodex here.
there are a number of big companies out there right now that you can look at that have big CEOs that are running. I mean, big. I'm not talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, nationwide, maybe international companies.
Yes.
Okay. And I think I would think that there's a fair amount of them that started out working on the line
Yeah.
at that company.
That's my point.
Never had a college degree at all.
Yeah.
Never went to a graduate school or a law school or any other thing. And now they're running that company. Here's what I'm trying to get
Completely
at. Is I think that person is way more valuable
Of course.
than a person who comes out of college with a 6.32 on a 4.0 scale and gets hired because of who their dad knows or not, because these people know what it's like to be a worker. They know what it's like to be on the line. They know what it's like to work overtime. They know what it's like to bust their ass. And when you're in charge of all of those people down the line and you came from that,
Yeah, you have a
I
lot better
would
perspective.
much rather have that person. So I just
you
have
don't have that at all today. Not
You have all kinds. I bet you have.
kids are on their phone more than they want to work with their hands and work on the line and
I'm talking
do
about
those
where
menial
people
jobs.
are out working on their hands and they work their way up through the company. And there's females that are big CEOs of big companies and don't even have
Wow.
a college degree. Well,
so
Martha
Awesome.
Stewart, isn't she just?
She's pretty funny though.
Yeah.
Martha Stewart's great.
Yeah.
And she went to prison for.
Something we've all done.
And
We've all
and-
done. Is it a good time to buy that stock now? Okay.
And it
Our
was
congressmen all do it, but they don't get it.
I know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean they were coming after Martha Stewart.
For something. It had to be something else that they wanted her.
She was like a revolutionary. She was doing all the things that no one else was doing at the time. The documentary's great. Just watch it.
I will. What documentary? Where?
I don't know. Netflix?
Netflix? I
Maybe
don't know.
Netflix. I think it's just called Martha.
Is Snoop part of that documentary?
They talk about it at the end.
Because those two are tight.
They talk about it at the end, yeah. It's a great... I have a lot of respect for her after watching the documentary.
Okay, well,
She was just kind of a boss.
Yeah.
She was a boss. From
Yeah,
from
it
day
didn't let
one.
people tell her no. It
She
didn't
did
care-
whatever she
It didn't
wanted.
care she was a female. Didn't make any difference to
She
her.
did whatever she
None.
wanted and didn't listen to anyone else trying to tell her how to live her life, and she was extremely successful. And I
It's
don't
probably
think that
the
they
good
liked
old
it.
boys club that did it to her.
Who's
then.
they?
The Boys Club. I don't know how. I just watched the documentary.
Yeah, I
It's
will
good.
have to. That's intriguing to
Yeah.
me, and I get it. But I think there's way too much. I could be wrong. I don't have the last couple decades of inner working experience to have my opinion change. That's why it's great to have somebody to help enlighten me. I just don't think that the colleges and these degrees. I've got a Juris Doctorate hanging on the wall in there. It doesn't make me a penny.
Well,
I personally.
I'm gonna say you don't allow it to make you a penny.
No, our government won't allow me to use it to make a penny. Period. Okay? So, I can't be the only one.
Okay.
I just think that these pieces of paper are worth way more than they're given credit for. That's all I'm saying.
Well, let's.
I just don't think that these universities and their degrees, I think this is my opinion. I'll embarrass you, okay, on TV. Okay,
You go ahead.
I'll go ahead and embarrass you. I personally, if I had to pick a boat to get on, and you got a Harvard graduate over here, and you got my daughter over there, I don't even need to know who that is. I know whose boat I'm getting
You're
on.
biased.
Well, because I understand. I know you. I don't think there's anybody on this planet, Harvard degree or otherwise, that if you were motivated and you were given the proper time to educate yourself in whatever the issue was that you both went into a mock debate, whatever. You both went in and got the same information, same period of time to prepare, and the same period of time to go perform. Okay? I would put my money on you every single time.
Thanks, Dad.
Well, I want to win. It's not because you're my daughter. I want to be on the winning team. I want to win. I'm not. If there was somebody else,
I think Dalton would win.
win what?
Up against me.
At what? A mock
what
debate?
you just explained.
Bridget, he never even took a book home from school. He never
That's
even
my
bought
point.
books
Literally
in
my
college.
That's exactly my point.
How much did
That's-
how much does he make a year right now, and how much do you make?
Stop.
No.
Don't tell me no.
No.
You-
That's
yes.
not my. You're getting off track.
No,
You
I'm not. Dalton doesn't have the degrees you do.
It-
He didn't have the same opportunities you do.
Now you just
I don't know what
said
you're talking about.
that,
Dad.
that you're
Dad.
you're picking her, the person, not the school where she went, over the person from Harvard. So
Anybody.
So now
Period.
why are you bringing up where he went to
I
school?
didn't,
As
she
opposed,
did.
No, you just did.
She said she
Run
would
it
beat
back.
him.
Yeah.
No, I
You said
he
Dalton
would
would beat
beat
me. That's what I said.
Right, but you
But-
brought up where he went to school.
Yeah, and he's not got. He didn't get the interview she
I
got.
actually don't know if he's disagreeing with me or if he actually agrees
Well,
with me.
true, too,
Because
yeah.
he's just
No,
yelling about.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know.
Just to be shot.
No. Fuck you.
Wait, so wait,
That's
wait.
that's not.
Do you-
I'm just
I don't
so
think it
tired
is-
of that stereotype. Go ahead.
Of it, you being you.
Yeah, I'm so tired of people.
He has his own.
You don't
stereotype,
know
that's
what
all.
my brain's thinking, and I don't
Dad,
appreciate people
he's
telling me I know what I'm
and
thinking.
Sean, I do apologize for kind of digging at you a little bit.
It's easy
but
to do that.
I do know you well enough to know
Listen,
a
I also know my son and daughter, Dalton and Bridget, who have been brought
Fine.
up in this conversation. Okay, now I'll give you an example.
It was my fault for
no,
trying
no,
to
no,
pin
no,
him against me.
no. Yeah, that. Well,
I was saying that Dalton 100% is way smarter than I am. It's like obvious. I don't think that anyone has disagreed with that.
Okay,
And this
now
is the. Can we move on?
Yes, please.
Thank
Let's
you.
circle back around to the
Doesn't matter
question.
what I have to say.
At this point, no.
No, it doesn't. Not right now. Not about Dalton.
Right now, we want to get back to what we started, and that is, what was the main question?
could tell you.
Oh, good Lord. Okay, we're talking about the college loans and the government paying paying them off.
So, do you think Dalton's?
Good Lord.
No. I'm talking about the loans.
Okay.
Okay. Do you think Dalton's intelligence that you're impressed by and
Jeez.
you're referring to? Okay, you're saying
Yeah.
you just said he's smarter than you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, do
It's
you?
laughable.
And that has to
No,
go to the loans,
Let
right?
me ask you a question. Well, I'm going to get there.
Okay.
Okay. So, do you think that that's because he worked harder than you did and studied more than you
It
did?
nothing to do with the
Can I
loans.
ask her? Can I ask her a question?
I mean, it's kind of off topic, but sure.
Well, no, I'm going to get to the topic
Okay.
of borrowing the money and end up with
You-
loans.
all right,
Because
go
your
ahead.
ability to pay back those loans has to do with where you graduated and the opportunity you got for an interview where you got your job. He didn't have an opportunity for those kind of interviews. He never had a chance, and you're proving my point, because I understand he's very smart. He never had the chance to sit down and prove to anybody
That's
else
not true, Dad.
how
He
smart
never
he was.
wanted to.
Well-
You're telling me that he applied at the firms that I applied to and they just didn't even take him on for an interview?
No,
That's
no.
false.
I think he didn't apply anywhere because I don't think he thought his grades were good enough anybody would even
He
give him an
literally finished
interview
the
anyway.
top of the class.
At
He
where?
It doesn't.
Student loans, aren't they wonderful?
At where?
We're going back to
no,
student
we're not.
loans.
We're going back to what I said about pieces of paper with grade point averages from one university and grade point averages from another university. They can be the same and one be way better than
we
the other.
both agree with you on that.
Okay. So,
what's the
fact that
argument here? I mean, like, what's your point
I
that you're
think
trying to
you've
make?
got the better opportunity to pay back your student loans because of your work ethic, your ability to keep straight A's all through high school, keep very good grades all through college, all through law school. You excelled, and that's what you earned that opportunity for that interview to get the better job, to make more money, to pay off his school loans.
Okay.
His school loans aren't prorated. His school loans aren't. He has to pay different amount of money either on the full amount or the payments monthly because he has to pay 100% of the same amount of school loans as you do.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Because this is a very interesting perspective that you're giving me. So what you're saying is,
I'm
and
not
you're going to
sure
go back
what-
on
yeah,
this.
tell
You're
me.
going to go
No.
back because you're going to think, okay. So what you're saying is because he doesn't make as much money as I do, he shouldn't have as much student loans.
He surely shouldn't have to pay as much monthly.
Okay.
But the school that he went to, what was the difference in
Now
cost?
you're bringing it up.
But I think listen.
Well-
so the question is, it was not
Similar.
It was similar.
Similar.
So what you're saying is the
And
people,
she got a lot of
so what-
grants, scholarships, shit that he
oh my
didn't
gosh,
get.
can
That
I
affected
talk?
the loan amount. Go ahead.
So what you're saying is if someone makes more money, they should be required to pay more. Or if someone makes less money, they should be forgiven certain
Not
amount.
forgiven, but be given more
Grace.
time.
They should be given more grace because they make less money.
Yeah. A person who makes half of what another person makes
So because I worked
shouldn't
really,
have to-
really hard.
I get it.
No. Because
No,
I
no.
worked really,
No.
really hard. And because I went to school, I went to class, I didn't flunk out, I worked my butt off to get where I am because
You did. You earned it all.
So
you deserve it all.
So someone
On your own. You did it.
So someone next to me that didn't try at all through school and didn't get good grades because they didn't. No, don't interrupt me.
Okay, well, finish so I can remember what I want to answer because I got a very good answer.
No, but you're thinking about the next thing you're going to say. Just listen to what I'm saying.
Go ahead. I'm trying to remember what it is that I don't want to forget. So go ahead. No, finish.
It's funny because he's taught us our whole lives how important it is to listen.
I'm trying.
And right now, he's not listening.
No,
he's
I'm
thinking
listening.
about the next
Well,
thing
but
that he's going
I
to
don't
say.
want to forget it.
I know, because
So
he
can I say that and then let you
because
finish
what
so I
he-
don't...
But he wants to say
Can-
is more important than what I'm saying.
No.
So
I
what-
don't want to forget it. Can I say that
Yes.
and then let you finish afterwards
Sure.
so I can listen better?
Yes.
Okay. Based on what I think you're headed toward, is he should get special treatment on how much he... I don't think that he should be able to go to Kroger's and pay less for bananas than you. I don't think he should go buy a car.
We're
and
talking
pay-
about student loans.
Let me finish. I don't think he should get a break on how much he pays for a car than you do. I don't think that he should have a break
I get
on
it. Keep going.
anything else. But with regard to the government, with regard to loans that were given to somebody that was their only option. It was not a choice. They had no option. If they wanted a degree, that's the route they had to go. They had to go through the government
Because
that's the only way they had the money to be able to go.
of why?
His parents were millionaires.
Because maybe he didn't work hard enough and try hard enough.
No,
in
then
school.
you're getting into your grants and your scholarships, and you ended up with less money owed at the end than he did because you earned a lot more scholarship money and you owed a lot less at the end. But you're missing my point. When you start, to me, with student loans is what you said the topic was. So I'm trying to focus on that for you. The student loans should be dealt with differently based on income of whoever those people are. I don't care what profession they're in.
It's the income driven. I think that's one of the programs that you can
Well,
enter into.
if
If you
they're-
make $10,000 a year, they're not going to make you pay
Okay.
$2,000 a month.
That's
for
all I'm
student
saying.
loans.
If that isn't the thing anymore, that's bullshit.
I completely agree.
That's all I'm trying to say to you.
I agree.
Okay.
So all I'm trying to say is the people with nepotism or people with even people who earn their way. I'm not want to take anything away from you. You did it yourself by yourself.
We should be required to pay more monthly.
No, you should be able.
because
You should be.
That's what you're saying.
No, I'm not. You're going to pay the same amount over time. You're
I
just
said
going to
you're
pay
more
quicker.
monthly.
You're going to pay quicker.
Said I should be required to pay more monthly.
I don't think they should be required to pay as much as everybody else that makes way more money. I think
that's
that's a
exactly
problem.
what she said.
I think that's a problem with our country right now is that the elites have all they get the benefits of all the loopholes and all the challenges avoided because of their wealth and because of their parents or because of their nepotism. And I think the people who don't have those
Good question.
people that don't have those connections are still held to the same fucking standard, have to pay the same monthly amount every month. And if they took that away, that's wrong.
So this does not apply to taxes, correct?
Taxes. No, you're going to pay the same amount of taxes on what you
I'm asking
earn.
you what you think, though.
Well,
You think that
I
if
don't know the
someone
tax
earns
code
less-
well enough to know.
I'm not talking about, Dad, I'm talking about what you think.
But I don't understand the question.
Okay. Do you think that how you think of what you just explained with student loans? If you're not making as much money, you shouldn't have to pay as much monthly.
I agree with that.
Do you think that if you don't make as much money, you should pay less taxes in what you bring in than someone who makes a lot more than you? That's just a concept. I'm not asking you to recite the code.
No, well, I mean, are they at different tax rates?
I'm not talking about tax rates, Dad. I'm talking
So
about the
I don't
concept.
understand.
Okay.
I'm listening, and I still don't understand.
The concept of if you...
Can you give me an example?
Sure, Dad. Say, hypothetically, I make $1 million a year. Okay. And you make $10,000 a year. That's too big of an example.
50,000.
I'm going to say 50.
Let's say 100 and a million.
Sure.
Okay.
And I don't like that. I like it something really low. I like 25. You make $25,000 a year. I make $100,000 a year.
Okay.
Do you think that you proportionally should pay less in taxes because you make less money than I do? Should I pay more in taxes because I make more money?
I don't know. I don't.
Proportionally,
No. I still
would
because
I don't think that is. I don't think that's an option.
I'm not, Dad. I'm talking about what if you could create a world. I'm asking what you think. I'm asking. You're saying I don't know how I can be more clear.
Let me give an example of what my brain's thinking right now and help direct.
No, this is an easy question.
I don't know it. I need you to help me understand this. I had it and I lost it.
Hypothetically, I just
hold on.
I think that I kind
ahead.
of agree. I think now that I'm saying it out loud and asking you the question, I'll answer it for me. I think that for someone who makes significantly less money, they should pay significantly less in taxes proportionally to what someone that makes a lot more money pays in taxes.
Okay, here's my question.
Because they make less.
Logically, that sounds right to me, but let me better understand it. Okay, so for instance,
It's logical,
The
I think.
problem I have with my student loans being cleared, paid by the government.
You really think that they paid off all of your student loans?
Yes, sir. I will show you pictures on my phone.
You think that all of your student loans have been forgiven?
Yes.
Did you get a letter in the mail? An email?
I will sign on my FAFSA when we get off
I
here.
know, but did it say anything?
Zero.
No, but did it send you a letter and say your loans are forgiven?
No. I've never got an invoice since.
Listen, I wouldn't
no,
complain.
no,
I
no.
wouldn't complain.
No, you're missing my question. I want to ask you a question. This is where my mind went when you asked that. Okay, I feel guilty about that. No, I do, and here's why. No, listen. I swear to God, I'll tell you why.
No one else is making it up for it. Like, just because if your loans were forgiven, it's not like they gave it to other people to pay.
Yeah, they did.
No, they didn't, Dad.
Somebody has to pay those colleges.
It's not who's being paid.
Yeah, but listen to me. The colleges are getting paid. Period.
Well, the college got paid when the loan was initiated.
Yeah.
The college got their money.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So, when somebody doesn't pay back their loan, okay,
Who does it hurt?
the college has still got their money. So the government now is going to take tax money paid by American citizens, and that bill
Probably just going to be bad debt.
That government can't write that off. Who did they write it off to?
Okay, but earlier
But let me finish.
earlier you were saying just to say,
I
that
didn't
should be
finish.
that
No,
should
guess
be
what? He's gonna forget
0%.
what he's
Give
gonna
it.
say, so let him
No,
talk.
I do. For being accused of being a conservative person, I have a lot of liberal bones in me. I believe that our government does a horrible job of spending taxpayers' money on people the way they do. And here's my point. I don't believe you that it goes away. I think our government still pays that money off, okay? But all the taxpayers that maybe never went to college, maybe never went to law school, maybe never did any of those things, that own their own business, now their taxes are going to be higher, or they certainly aren't going to go down because our debt has increased and we need more tax money. So now my student loans were forgiven, but somebody's paying for them.
That's why
And
I
I don't
said-
agree with that. I feel wonderful that that's not there. I couldn't pay it if I had to anyway.
I
But
think it's a lot more complicated than that. I don't think it's that simple at all.
I don't think so. You think there's just
Can
a
I-
bucket somewhere where our government could just throw bad debt and
Yes.
just say, forget that.
Yes. Yeah.
Then why do we have the debt we have? Why are we in
We don't
this
care about
situation?
it. We don't. The country doesn't care about the debt that we're in. That's why we're in. What is the country?
Well,
what
the
debt? are we-
politicians don't care
No,
about
let me ask you a question.
$35 trillion.
I don't know the answer to this. The government provides these loans through FAFSA. The government. Okay, so the government takes taxpayer money and pays these universities up front, as Mr. McGivney explained, right? So they're paid. They care less.
Can I read you?
Well, yeah, but
The
let me. Okay, go ahead.
I know the answer. ChatGPT.
To what?
What happens when student loans are forgiven? What does the government do with the debt?
Okay.
When the government forgives student loans, it absorbs the financial loss. Essentially, the federal government writes off the debt and removes it as a collectible asset from its books. Here's what happens in more detail. Accounting write-off. Okay, they officially record the forgiven loan as a loss. It no longer counts as an asset on the government's balance sheet. Budget impact. The cost of
It
forgiveness
no longer counts as a what?
on the
Budget
government's balance sheet
As a what? A loss?
as an asset
As an asset. Okay.
because it's something that they could
Got
have
it. Go
collected.
ahead.
The cost of forgiveness is recorded as an expenditure in the federal budget. It increases the deficit unless offset by spending cuts or increased revenue elsewhere. Unless, but that's not necessarily required. The debt isn't sold, reassigned, or transferred. It's simply canceled. It doesn't move somewhere else or get collected later. The taxpayer burden indirectly, since the government is funded by taxpayers, the cost of forgiveness is ultimately covered by public funds. However, there's no direct new tax for it unless Congress enacts one.
Agreed.
Okay.
It's still absorbed and
in
everybody
short, the
pays for
government
it.
eats the loss, and it's reflected in the national budget.
I don't know what it says eats the loss. I really don't. That was contradictory to me. That said that it writes it off, but it's still. Here's my question: FAFSA. That's a government administrative agency, right? Who funds that? Where did they get their money?
Government.
Okay, so they're the ones spending the money. They're the ones sending the money. So when their money runs out because nobody's paying it back,
Yeah.
where did our government replenishes their money? And it comes from taxpayers. That you can't just keep giving people new loans when there's no money there.
Sean, do you not understand how the United States government functions?
Apparently not. You're the one that told me you had to be 43 to be a president.
I said
Well,
43.
Okay, so well,
I
he
agree.
agreed with you.
I agree.
So you tell me, you think you're smarter than me? Tell us what you know.
What I'm saying is the federal government doesn't care. It's
The politicians don't care.
Okay, what is the federal government, Dad?
but the politicians.
But
Politicians.
we're getting rid of the U.S. Department of Education somehow.
Yeah, so what's going to happen then?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think it all goes back down to the states. Okay, in the
And the
states.
states are going to fund us. The states are going to fund student
Us.
loans?
No,
No,
that's just
I
the
don't
operation
think
of the class. The
student
schools.
loans come
They
through
don't go
the
through the
Department
Department of Education.
but
That doesn't go through there. That's a
Who
separate.
do you think facilitates and administers FAFSA?
I don't know, but I don't believe it to be the Department of Education.
Okay. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't believe.
I guess
it to
I
be.
just presumed.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you're going to find it in finance or in a different department of loans and banking and over there somehow. I don't think the Department of Education is in the business of interest and giving loans and collecting on loans and shit like that. Their job was to control the caliber of the schools and all that kind of stuff and funding and help.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't believe it's part of that. So I think that entity that keeps giving out loans to new qualifiers, to new people, and keeps paying the universities in full up front, just like he said, I think that has to continue to be funded for them to continue sending money to universities. Where do you think that money comes from?
But Sean, again,
The workers.
Let him answer.
you go back to how the government runs. It doesn't matter what department it is, the regulatory process, the every different type of
You're stimmering and stammering because you don't have a good argument.
every different
Just let him
type of
talk.
government entity, no matter what it is funded by the government in some form or manner, and they don't care because that's why we're $35 trillion in debt.
Okay.
Because
That
all
doesn't
we
change-
do
that
all
doesn't-
we do
Let
is
him
sell more
finish.
bonds.
Let him finish.
All we do is sell more bonds to other countries to supposedly fund our debts.
Okay. If you don't think I'm smart enough to know that, then
well, but you are talking around. You say,
still,
where does the money come from?
I still have the same opinion. That did not change my opinion at all.
You say,
the
where does the money come from?
administrative agency that
Can I
continues
answer?
to give out loans
It's
has
the
to
Department
get
of
the money
Education.
from somewhere. Okay.
For federal student loans, the key entity that facilitates them is the U.S. Department of Education.
Okay. So
Let's see how it works. Okay, the U.S. Department of Education oversees all federal student loan programs, funds loans using money from the U.S. Treasury, and sets the rules for repayment, interest, deferment, and forgiveness.
okay.
So, I mean, what's going to happen when the Department of Education is gone?
Well, it's not gone. They're not getting rid of it.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not. They're reducing it down and turning over the control of the schools to the states. I would think that if that is controlled by the Department of Education, that'll continue operating just as it does.
Yeah.
Or move to a different department. But it's not going to go away.
Well,
It's not going to stop.
Okay, so
And again, as she said, it comes from the U.S. Treasury. I
let me-
heard that. Where does the money come from?
I hate to go through this
Don't
this
repeat yourself.
question.
Okay.
I hate to go through this question because of everything, all the water that's gone under the bridge so far, but it's somewhat proven. You've told me many times, the government needs to get out of doing so much because private entities
100%.
show that they can do it better.
Great.
So why would we not take the student loan thing and put that into the banking industry and
And
just
they do.
Yeah, it's available. You can go
But
to
it's-
PNC and get a student loan right now.
But it's...
It is.
But
It's available.
Don't they just sell it to the government?
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
So they're private
I could be
companies
wrong.
contracted by the Department of Education
Okay,
to
there's
manage.
those.
Okay. And
But that doesn't prevent banks from giving out loans.
Yeah, but is it the reason they do it is because the government's going to guarantee it?
I think the government guarantees all the loans
Well.
at the IC. I mean, come on.
But that's only up to $250,000. But okay.
Yeah, that's what they say. But yeah, that's not
I
true.
wonder what percentage of loans are private and what percentage.
I'm
government.
curious. Look that up. But I would say, I guess, appears stupid. I'll share my ignorance with you. I'd say 80% or greater are probably from the government.
Yeah. Because it's probably easier
It's
to
much.
get.
Yeah.
Probably cheaper.
Yeah.
Probably easier. Definitely easier to qualify. I didn't give anybody. It
And I
doesn't
think
matter.
that ultimately is the issue. Is giving
Whoa.
out money to 18-year-olds who
Have no
don't
income.
have no idea what they're doing with their lives. They're 18. I mean, like, you might as well be 12. You might as well be 13 years old when you're 18 for the most part. And they're asking 18-year-olds to
Guarantee something.
sign off on a repayment of $50,000 for 1 year of school. As an 18-year-old, you don't understand what that means.
No,
You don't
you just
understand
wanna
how
go
much
to college.
$50,000 is.
And
You just want to go and you want to play sports, or you want to go and hang out with your friends, or you want to go and get an education because you feel like you have to.
The
You have no
social
idea how
aspect
much
of college.
but
Now
you,
I get it now.
But you
I
don't.
get you take any loan, doesn't matter. You can care less. You go to college.
You don't understand when you're 18 years old
Agreed.
how much money
That's going to equate to.
that's going to equate to. You don't have any clue. And you know what? The high schools that push kids to go to schools that have a high tuition, I think it's very wrong. You know,
But-
I didn't
but
even
if
know
you
that I
don't-
could go to like a state school and pay like
But
$10,000.
you never got the job with that degree.
That's not true.
You
Dad.
never got the interview with that degree.
Dad, I'm talking about college.
I understood.
I absolutely could have gone into Stetson if I went to Ohio State.
Okay. All right.
100%. And you don't think about it. I didn't think about
Yeah,
it. I didn't even know that I could go to a
don't-
school that was like $10,000 a year.
I
or
didn't,
$5,000 a
and
year.
I've never met anybody that I went to college with, and I would be shocked if you're wrong. I think that anybody picks the college they want to go to has nothing to do with finances. Well,
No, but
very few. There probably are some that's their
Because
focus.
of how easy it is to get a federal student loan.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter to them. I want to go to a party school
Because right
or
now it
this
doesn't.
school
You don't
or
think about having to repay it in the moment.
agreed.
So that's the issue. I think. I think they give them out too willy nilly.
I think
it should be harder.
I think it should be merit based, and it's just coming in my head as we're talking because that's how you solve problems is
Mm-hmm.
talking way through things. Because I didn't even know what the subject was when we started, but I think it ought to be merit-based. I think that your performance in your career ought to dictate how much money you have to pay back.
So that's interesting because I feel like that'd be really difficult to.
If you go to a college for a technical degree in a field, and you get out and can't get a job, and you tried,
Yeah.
When I get a job and I make what that college promised me I should be able to make, then start taking my money again. But until then,
I think you would tell me that they're not trying hard enough.
could be. I mean, there probably are some of those, but okay, so I'm not trying hard enough.
Well, growing up, Dad, you told me that I could do literally whatever I wanted if I tried hard enough. Yeah. And I said, Dad, no, I can't run up and down the basketball court 1,500 times without taking a break. And your response was, yeah, you can. You just have to do it. Yes, you can. You're not trying hard enough. Anytime I failed at anything, it was because I wasn't trying hard enough. Do you disagree with that?
Well, I don't think I would have said you could go up and down a basketball court 1,500 times. But I take your point. I agree with what you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
So, I mean, maybe as you've gotten older, you've felt
softened.
More, you've softened a little bit, and maybe give I said maybe a little bit. And maybe
I don't see much.
Maybe you're giving people more of a benefit of the doubt, saying that if the person that's in IT can't get a job, then it's not because they're not trying hard enough. Maybe it's outside factors.
Well, I certainly have zero compassion for lazy ass kids. I have zero compassion. If they're not working and they're not trying and they're not making the effort, I agree with you. I don't think they deserve a break.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I listen. I was not giving my opinion there. I don't think that that's true. I don't think
what's true?
I don't think that the person that's in IT that can't get an IT job, they can't get it because they're not trying hard enough. I don't think that. I just am surprised that you didn't respond that way. I'm surprised that you said that person should be given more time or forgiveness.
Here's my hindsight as an old has-been.
Yes.
Because it's very different than what you were used to me being.
Yes.
And I've tried to explain to you and your brothers on many occasions that I'm not the same.
I know.
But you guys aren't around me enough really to absorb that, to understand that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So here's the difference for me. As I've gotten older, I have gotten to the point where I look at things from a different perspective than I used to look at it.
Yeah.
I used to be bulletproof and indestructible. Mm-hmm. And nobody's getting in my way, the government or anybody else. Mm-hmm. Get the fuck out of my way. And if you're in my way, don't cry later when you're figuring out how to get back up.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I can't do that anymore. I can't. If I know how, I want to, I'm not capable. Mm-hmm. Physically or mentally. Mm-hmm. I can't keep up with the intelligence level of this new generation. I can't. When I went to law school, just a quick, just a little bit for these people to hear, okay? Mm-hmm. When I went to law school and they gave us an assignment, everybody would run
to the library to get the book
out of that class.
If you didn't get the book, then you couldn't do the assignment.
You're sitting there waiting.
I know.
Okay, so understand that's a very different fucking experience in life.
World.
To have to go to a library, get out a giant fucking book, and sometimes there were 6 of us all reading over each other's shoulders to try to figure out how to do our assignment, when you can lay in bed with your feet up on a pillow and your dog petting your dog on the internet, and you don't even have to get a book. And you not only don't have to pull the book up online, you can ask ChatGPT what the fucking answer is. You don't even need to learn it. You don't even need to read it. Okay, yep. So understand at an old has-been's perspective now has some hostility toward that. I'm very jealous.
You're a little resentful.
A lot resentful.
It's not our fault.
No, not against you. You're missing my point.
Against who?
You just said to me my perspective has changed because I used to be against the lazy asses, and if they're not trying hard enough, that's their fault. Now I'm seeing it from the perspective of the corruption and the government and some of the corruption and some of the capitalism. Okay, I believe in capitalism 100%, but there's some abuses out there that need to be reined in.
Yeah.
So I see it differently, and I believe there are situations and circumstances where their struggle isn't because they're just lazy.
Okay, cool. I'm glad.
But I still believe those lazy asses walk over them. I have no compassion for them. But if you're a legitimate, listen, here's my problem. I mean, that's what this whole podcast is for, is the difference in generations. I'd say this is the most productive, regardless of the topic, this has been the most productive podcast we've had, because you and I aren't just fucking arguing with each other. And
we're arguing with each
other.
other.
No. We're educating.
We added one more person into the argument.
No, we're educating. Or at least I feel like I'm getting educated.
Good.
I'm learning things. Okay. And you're also a little bit surprised that I'm willing to learn and willing to change. Here's the problem. I don't have an option. What you don't understand is some people in some circumstances, it's not their fault.
I do understand that.
Okay.
I
that
completely
needs
agree.
to be that. I grew up at a time when you got what you earned.
Yeah, it's not how that is. That's not how it is anymore.
But how am I supposed to fucking know that? Am I just supposed to, somebody come over and knocked on my door and open, hey, by the way, just so you know, it's not a merit-based world anymore.
I think that Fox News should have some younger people on to explain
What's
what
Fox
it's like
News
now.
have to do with anything? I don't watch Fox. I watch Gutfeld and The Five.
I
And
know.
what
I
are
heard
they
you on the
on?
other
It's
podcast.
comedy.
What are they on?
Yeah, exactly. Fox
I
News.
don't necessarily watch
Fox
them on
News.
Fox. I watch them on my phone a lot of times. But that's the point. Whatever they're on, that's not the point. I'm not. What are you laughing at?
Because on your phone it's still Fox News.
Yeah.
Well, it might be, but I'm not sitting in front of watching
No
the
one
Fox
sits
channel.
in front of the TV and watches
Yeah,
news
and
anymore anyway.
I just shared that with you the other day, where I caught myself watching
Yeah.
television, the TV on,
Yeah.
and haven't watched it for an hour because I'm like this on my phone.
You know, a lot of my generation, they get all of their news on their phone.
And I
On
think that's
TikTok,
probably a problem
on-
too.
I don't think so.
I think that then they better get some whatever you would call them, journalists or
They do that.
on TikTok. Where's journalism on TikTok?
Yeah, but journalism isn't what journalism
No, but
is.
it
No, I
is.
agree. It's not
It-
even
it-
No,
mainstream.
It's-
but there is. There's so many journalists on TikTok.
Okay, well, I don't know. Okay,
Okay, so what I'm saying is there's
I'm new to TikTok and I've watched very
I'm
limited.
not on TikTok much. I prefer other platforms, but
I don't prefer any platform.
Give me a for instance, because
Yeah.
I don't want to download TikTok, so I'm staying away. But what else is there that?
well, Instagram has the same content, really. Instagram Reels, which is essentially
Like
TikTok.
Facebook Reels, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I
That's
don't know
why
anything
tried
about
to-
Facebook Reels, but I'm sure that it's the same. But I'm talking about like more private, not CNN, not Fox News.
I think they're all bullshit.
Podcasts, like for
Extremes
instance,
to each end. I'm not interested.
yeah, Crystal and Sauger, they're on Breaking Points. Crystal's way left, Sauger's way right, but it's a podcast that they've created on their own. They don't have any big news funding. It's all private funding, and that's really where I listen to it every day. And I don't necessarily agree with a lot of what they say on both sides, but it's a different point of view. It's a different perspective than CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, where they interview someone for 3 minutes and they have to cut to a pharmaceutical commercial break. Yeah. It's long form discussions. That's what my generation listens to. We listen to long podcasts, 3-hour podcasts on one topic.
See, that's why I got this, because I wanted to break it down into 20-minute sessions.
If you
which
get
still go longer than that.
intrigued
It's-
and roped in, you're going to stay listening. It's when you get bored and you
I know
lose them.
Joe Rogan goes on.
Joe Rogan-
I can't turn him off.
I listen to Joe Rogan all the time. It depends on who he has on, but I do listen to people even that he has on that I completely disagree with. I make
That's
myself
great.
listen. I agree. And he talks about it. He talks about how the issue is like with the mainstream news, it's all 3-5 minute interviews. You can't really get anything out of them.
Soundbite.
Sound bites. It's all sound bites. It's all big headlines.
Everything is
And
like that
podcasts,
now.
but he's had a lot of people on, and it's not just him. There are many other podcasters who have big names on, and to have these long form discussions where they can actually discuss things.
We got our first big name today. Go ahead. I'm proud of you. You're very successful. Leave me alone.
Thanks, Dad.
Okay, go ahead.
No, that's all. I was just saying that
Well,
that's where I get my news.
But I
long
don't.
form podcast.
Here's my opinion from the outside. Old has-been's opinion. I think you're, for a lot of reasons, you're rare. You're not normal. Okay, that's a compliment and an insult at the same time.
I agree. I'm not normal.
You're not normal. So I expect that you would put yourself in a situation where you had the knowledge you needed to be able to navigate your life. So I trust that you'll get your news. I don't trust the great majority of your generation that any of them is getting any fucking news from anywhere.
I don't.
I don't think they're wasting a minute of their day giving a fuck about the news or how it's right or wrong or which way our government. I don't think the majority of your generation has any time spent with news.
The issue is maybe you need to have
Am I
someone.
wrong?
Maybe you need to have someone else on here that's not in the legal field, because all of my friends 100% absolutely pay attention to news every single day.
I think
And
that's
we
the,
all
I
talk
think
about
that's
it.
the people you surround yourself with.
So I can't answer for my generation.
yeah.
Those are the people that I surround myself with. I don't know. I don't talk to people who aren't that way. Honestly,
you're not exposed to that, I guess. But when you were going through law school, did you watch the news, pay attention to the news?
I really didn't have much time.
Okay. And when you went through college, did you pay attention to the news, really?
I don't think I cared in college.
No, and I don't, what I'm saying to you, I'd love for somebody to comment and tell me I'm wrong. Okay? I don't think your generation cares. I think they're in the same state of mind as you were through college and law school. I don't think they care.
I will 100% disagree with you because can I ask your age?
Yeah, I'm turning 30 in about 2 weeks.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
condolences
May
and
15th.
congratulations.
Thank you. I made it.
But the thing is, I think right now, that age is looking at starting their career.
Not 30, they're not.
Yeah.
Those kids are starting their career at 23. Very few kids go to law school or graduate school.
Okay,
30 is not when they start their career.
All right.
There are many second career in the legal field, 100%. I graduated with many, and I work with a few.
I don't know what you mean by
second career, meaning they went to law school when they were like 30 or 40 as a second career.
Okay.
And they graduate at one of my good friends
I
at
never
the
dreamt
office
that
is
was
second
very
career.
common, but okay.
I wouldn't say it's very common, but it's common.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Anyway, keep going. It happens.
I'll amend that and say they're hitting their stride in their career.
Which you would agree with.
28. That's what I agree with.
Okay,
That's
so
what
When
he
you
said.
get to 28,
He's saying
that's
that.
the start of your
28,
life. You got
38,
28
30.
to 48. That's 20 years. You better.
But they're hitting
reel
that
it in.
stride. So the thing is, what the fun from college and everything is drifting away because now you've got a wife. Now you've got a mortgage.
Not much anymore.
Now
There's
you've
not people getting married
now
much
you got,
anymore.
Will you let him talk?
Now you got student loan debt. Now you got. So they are
Paying more
becoming more concerned over, gee, is the government going to be there? All I've heard my parents
Is the
talk.
government
All
gonna
I've heard
be
my
there? I
parents
don't know what
talk
that
about is, gee, Social Security is not going to be there for me to retire. So what am I paying into it now for? So
They've been
there's
saying that for
more-
30 fucking years.
I understand, but what I'm saying is, I believe, like she says, I think they're getting more engaged, and statistically,
You
it's
agree with
proven.
that? And you're the people you surround yourself with. I
There
do.
are some that have more important things in their life than the news, but one of my nephews, definitely watches and listens to podcasts and can probably cite more of some of the things going on in the government now than I can. And he's 25 or 6.
And I think that has a lot to do with social media and podcasts
Exactly.
because
And
it's
do
so
you-
easily accessible.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the masses? You think that's the majority?
I think in that age group, 24 to 30, I think they are really becoming it has been statistically
Based on your
proven.
nephew.
It has been statistically proven that age group is listening to, gets their news from podcasts.
I love to see those statistics because I'm curious how that question is worded. But I'm not denying the fact that people their age watch podcasts more than they watch the news or anything else, probably.
And on podcasts, they talk about the news. I mean, like, that's what people talk about in podcasts. They talk about the world and what's going on in the world. And it depends if it's a political podcast or if it's, a Theo Vaughn who brings on a bunch of different people. But I think that's where a lot of people, that's where they're driven to. And with those podcasts comes a lot of learning about what's going on in the world. Something that you didn't have in your generation.
Yeah, and that's why your generation is way smarter than ours. I mean that literally. I don't mean that. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm being honest, okay? I think you're exposed
Yes.
to so much more and so much more knowledge and so many other opinions and so many more opinions.
Yeah.
And we also are in a world where, unfortunately, from my perspective, it's been a global thing for so many years. The last couple of decades, minus a few, have been our rush to make sure that all of us are making sure that the globe is all good. The globe is taken care of. And along that way, in that process, this is where I've changed my perspective to be less in favor of where I've switched, where I see it from a different perspective, where I am less impressed by our government and how the corruption and how that impacts people who aren't driven, who don't have
the opportunities that some other people have, depending on where they grow up, depending on their family situation.
100%.
Yes.
When I grew up in Mount Vernon, Ohio.
Yep.
Okay. My perspective is very different than somebody who lived in Baltimore or D.C.
Yeah.
or inner city Chicago, or I learned on the east side of St. Louis. I learned the hard way. Okay. It's taken me a lifetime, decades, to get where I see things differently than what life is in I won't say rural,
your bubble.
Well, I mean, but that's
probably a good way to put it. In that era,
that's a big part of this country, though.
The majority of the country.
Okay, that's the bubble that the majority of us were born into, grew up in, or raised in. And all I'm saying to you is that now it doesn't matter where you're born. It doesn't matter where you live because you have access.
If you have a phone, if you have Wi-Fi, if you have, sure.
Now, call Obama, he'll give you a phone. Anybody can have a phone. Everybody gets a phone. So the fact is that everybody, I guarantee you, prostitutes have phones.
Well, of course, that's how they do business.
But you're missing my point. Everybody has a cell phone.
That was such a, okay.
But it went
See
from...
what I have to put up with?
It went from, I never considered the globe in my lifetime.
Yeah.
The only thing that I experienced when we grew up, let him correct me if I'm wrong, Ethiopia. All the kids are dying in Ethiopia. They're dying of hunger. Finish your plate. Don't worry about being obese. Finish your plate. Don't throw that away because there's kids in Ethiopia that aren't eating. Okay? That was the extent of the global catastrophes when I grew up. Now, the news you get and the news you have access to is worldwide. It's everybody, everything. The Israel and the Palestinians. And, I mean, there's so much going on that I hope I'm wrong. I just don't think the majority of your generation has the same country experience, the United States of America focus and experience that our generation had.
It's because it's all you knew.
Well, it's all I knew. But now I know it all. And I still don't give a fuck about the globe. Okay, I still think America first and the U.S. citizens first. Once they're all off the streets, once they're not homeless, once they're fed, once Americans, there's no vets struggling anymore. Once Americans are all taken care of, at that point, if we want to expand out and try to help others in need, awesome. But I struggle how I was raised in the world I was raised in, understanding how our country has digressed since, I think there's more homelessness. I think there's a growing disparity where back when I grew up, everything was a lot closer to everybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody was there weren't the extremes. Mm-hmm. And I blame that on your generation because they don't have patriotism. They weren't raised in that bubble to where they saw things to where, when we have all these people protesting and doing all the things they're doing about people who live on the other side of the planet, couldn't we spend our time protesting for taking care of the people that live here?
They might be doing those too.
You don't see that. I don't see that.
Because the news doesn't probably talk about that.
I don't see that on podcasts. I don't see the focus on taking care of our own first. That's my perspective change. Because I think our government's doing a piss poor job of prioritizing the U.S. citizens. Mm-hmm. And I think they've suffered at the hand of us helping everybody else.
Yeah.
Instead of our own people. Mm-hmm. So that's how I've turned to where there's some people that I've never understood. There's some people that maybe I was born in East St. Louis or inner city Chicago. I said to you in a movie the other day, I said to you in the middle of the movie, I said your dad would have escaped the mayor and went back and rescued his mom. Mm-hmm. Because that's how I believe. That's still how I believe. I still believe that your future is in your own control. However, I've learned that that's not really the case. That's not really 100% true. And I think there's way more people than I knew growing up that are getting screwed, that don't get the same opportunity, that don't get, and I think that needs to be dealt with. The only way I know to deal with it, the only way my brain is equipped to deal with it is through patriotism, through arguing, and my patriotism changed a little bit because I used to be patriotic for my government. Mm-hmm. Now I'm patriotic for my citizens, mm-hmm. which has given me a different perspective. And I find myself fighting for the disadvantaged or the people who maybe are trying as hard as they fucking can, and it's not their fault that they can't get out. And I think if our government spent as much time on our own U.S. citizens as it should, and spend the money that our own U.S. citizens are giving them on those people, I might have a different perspective again.
Yeah.
I just do not agree at all with nepotism. I do not agree at all with the corruption. I do not agree at all. And it seems to me like nobody in our generation either cares enough, has the balls enough to do what he and I decided to do, and that's to start to share, hopefully someday, with other people and other generations to hear how it used to be. Just because you're patriotic, that's not a bad thing, man.
I don't.
Why is it? But why are people? Why is your generation not as patriotic as ours? For sure. Why not?
I don't know.
Public and
I don't know what
private
public
education.
Means. Okay, so the universities that we're paying all this money to, and all these student loans out there that are bringing all these kids down that are busting their ass, holding them back.
We used to learn
they're the
history.
Problem?
We used to learn history.
Is that true? Do you believe that to be true? Is he right? Is that the university's brainwashing all you kids so badly that, you can't see the people that are in the inner cities that need to get out? Do you guys know they exist? I know you do.
Yeah, of course I do.
Okay.
But what were you saying?
It's the narrative of what the school systems, whether it is high school or into college, I believe there's a narrative that they are trying to push.
Who's they?
Well, That I'm not 100% sure.
Do you
whether-
believe it's the Department of Education?
No.
I don't think they have a clue. I think they're just throwing money.
I exactly, but that's also, I feel, is being driven by this overlord puppeteer that
Who's
is.
the overlord?
I'm
trying to understand.
Me too.
Do you know what he's saying? Who's the puppeteer?
I don't think there's
Maybe
any
the
one.
military-industrial complex. Maybe it's the people that want us to always be in war because it makes them a lot of money. And
Why are we at
also
war? How are we at war? Explain to me how what's happening in this world right now has any fucking thing to do with us. How is any of it our responsibility?
Because it's not only because the people in DC want to make a lot of money from being in war because it makes them a lot of money.
Totally agreed. That's not my question.
I think it's selfish on our point of view because we want
also
resources.
Arrogant to think that we know that.
Absolutely, we think that we
We
should
don't understand their
spread
religions.
out. We should spread what we know, our religion, our ways
What
to.
religion? Which religion? Because the Board of Education is supposed to be separate from that.
I thought we were talking about who is the one that's controlling all this.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think it's the Department of Education. I think it's the people that are the lobbyists, the people that are higher up that, I don't know, maybe the Illuminati, like the people that make all the decisions in this country.
Or worldwide.
Yes,
Yeah, well,
worldwide.
Do you believe, you're smart, I respect your opinion. It's not a knowledge question, it's an opinion question, okay? Do you think that Biden's administration controlled our country, or do you think it was a global effort?
I
forget Biden, the administration.
And I hate to say too,
No, let her finish.
I don't know that I want her to answer that because of the position that she has. Sometimes
What's her position?
Your employers don't need to know
Okay.
every little
All right,
bit
never mind
of
then.
how you feel, because then if that doesn't go along with...
Let me give you my opinion, just for you to soak in, okay? I think that for many years, even through the Bush administrations, okay? I think for many years, there's been a movement toward global money, toward world banks, global money, global financing, and how all those people, elites, again, that's why I won't call you that again. That's a bad word to use.
Yeah.
So all of those elites, as you say it and you're touching on, all those elites, that's the more global money, the more money they make. The more money for them, the military industrial complex, all of it's all about those elites and the money that goes to those people. And I really believe the reason Trump got elected, he's a billionaire. How can anybody say a blue-collar mechanic supports Trump? That logically doesn't even make sense. Trump's a billionaire. You talk about elite. There is no more elite, but I think that it's got to the point where the blue-collar people, the people that work, the people that make it happen, whether it's physical work or otherwise, I really believe that they didn't feel like they had a say in anything anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think they feel like, despite him being a billionaire, I think they feel better about him caring about them.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is I think you could get even way better than Trump. How about get somebody in there that's conservative financially, as I am, but a lot more liberal socially.
Libertarian.
Why does it have to be one way? Because every time our government goes back and forth, okay, all of the people they're left out with either president, either administration. Okay, and I just feel like right now this America First to me strikes a chord with me. Mm-hmm. It means something to me. Mm-hmm. And it means something that I think people, even at any level of income, I think they feel like, why are we trillions of dollars in debt I can't get a good job, and we're taking care of everybody else in the rest of the world, but these people have no opportunities. And I think it's a care issue because we've sent God knows how many billions of dollars to Baltimore schools, still the worst in the country. All they do is, here's some money. I don't think they really care. I think there has to be a reckoning. I think there has to be maybe a third party. I think something has to come in.
I agree.
Something has to come in, or our country's just going to keep treading water. Good, bad. Half good, half bad. All bad. I mean, we have to stop, and your generation has to listen to us, even though we're stupid old fools. And you have to stop saying that I've been accused now of watching Fox News. I don't think you guys should presume where we get our news. My news, so you understand, real quick, let me finish it. My experience, my opinions, has very little to do with the news. It has way more to do with what I see this world like.
But where do you see that from? What perspective are you seeing that world happen through Fox News?
No. Here's the difference between, and you're just wrong. You just don't know. Okay? Here's the difference between our generation and their generation. Okay? If you want to know now, you can. You don't. I mean, there's farmers in rural Knox County. I mean, God bless Seth Yarman's soul, okay? He was one of the strongest, smartest, kindest, gentlest monsters I've ever known in my whole life. He probably never left Knox County in his whole life. But I still think he cared. I guarantee you he did. I still think he cared about veterans. I still think he cared about blue-collar people without jobs. I still think Seth in Little Mount Vernon, Ohio, still had the knowledge and the ability to have an opinion on his country and patriotism and watching the ebb and flow of our country. And I think our country, it's hard to say this, but I think our country's worse off now than it was in our generation because I think we're more separated. It's more way left or way right. It's more media. Way high or way low. I think it's all controlled by clicks and 30-second commercials and in between 3-minute interviews.
But you know what's funny about that?
Am I wrong?
You know what's funny about that?
Do you think that's wrong? Before he goes.
Which part?
Any of it. Do you think that our country is more divided?
Yeah, absolutely. It's because of social media. Go ahead.
But you know what's so funny about that is you are an independent, and the independents are larger than both the Democrats and Republicans. So
is that true?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Is that true? Because that's new if that's true.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That hasn't been the case very long. Go ahead.
No. So
I didn't know that.
I know that. So why is it that the Democrats and Republicans have so much power when the power really rests in the independents?
Because the age of the people in our government. That's the answer. The age of the people in our government do not understand their generation. Don't give a fuck about their generation. They only care about themselves and their stock trades and how they get rich and get richer and their nepotism.
But what he's asking is so I completely agree with you. I think that the majority of Americans are like me. I'm very moderate. I'm very in the middle with a lot of things. And I think that the majority of America feels that way. The majority of America...
The majority of America feels how again? Say it
moderate.
Again.
They're in the middle.
I don't know what moderate means. That's such a vague... I mean, what does that mean?
Just like
means
you said.
Not right or not left.
You believe a lot of things socially, but you're conservative
as they're defined, you mean? As right and left is defined.
Yes, you're saying that everyone's either on the right or the left. You're saying that it's very divided, and it is. But I think that the division is like a very small percentage of the American population. I think the issue is that the people that are so extreme on the right and so extreme on the left are the ones that are talking, and they're ones that are arguing with each other.
They're controlling our politics.
And they're absolutely...
The narrative.
They're
which in turn controls the politics.
And I think that if you really were able to poll every single American, the vast majority would be somewhere in the middle between
You mean
the
a
right
real poll?
and the left.
You mean a real poll, not a word.
Hypothetically, one that's never going to happen because it's impossible.
Yeah, but an objective poll, not one that's worded a certain way to get a certain answer. I'm
course,
hearing.
Dad.
Okay, but I want them to understand
Yeah,
that.
of course not. Of course not a
Leading
skewed-
poll.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
perfect poll.
So how come then, if
It's
that's
very
true,
hard for a third party to get the funding and to get their name out enough in an election to even come close to all of the Republicans and all the Democrats because of all the money that's behind both of those parties.
Agreed. And I want to. My opinion is that we don't have a Republican Party anymore. Okay, we have a Trump Party. Mm-hmm. It's not a Republican Party.
I know.
No,
That's my
you see,
opinion.
you see that is fracturing a little bit because a lot of the people who are representatives out there are right now especially getting a little nervous
Yeah.
because of all the cuts, all the
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that are happening.
Yeah.
So they're
that's a
fracturing
rhetorical
from.
statement. Here's my point, okay? The Republican Party in his first term wouldn't let him do shit. The Republican... Dude,
He had,
they fought him.
just like right now, he had everything.
There was as many Republicans against him in the first term as there were Democrats.
The biggest person...
Now...
The biggest thing that is against Trump is Trump. And right there.
Stop.
That's-
No, stop. I completely
his-
disagree because
his
I have one. So I completely disagree. Here, I think without that, the evolution that has occurred would never have occurred. I think without that, he wouldn't have the Republican Party almost. It was 60% his first term. Right now, it's about 90%. He's got almost all of those old
But
rhinos,
I need,
Republicans converted to the Trump
to see
Party.
all of the independents
Yeah,
on
but
his side.
but-
I need to see that.
By saying that, you're avoiding the point. You're avoiding the. I think we already have a third party. I think it's a Trump party. I think the Republicans should start over because they're not the Republican Party anymore. I can give you a list of a dozen rhinos right now that would tell you they hate him.
Well, that's
And they're still fighting against him.
and that's what I'm saying. The
Let them
Republican
go.
Party is fractured.
How does that? How do we fix that? So we're come on, we got to ask somebody, and you guys are the ones that have more
I'm not in
intellect.
politics
No,
for this reason.
I don't think it's a
Uh-huh.
political question. I think, honestly, I think it's an intelligent question. How do you get what she said and what you said to happen? How do you get a third party when funding is discouraged? And how do you get a third party when, like what you're saying, the independents are the mass? Shouldn't there? Come on, guys.
The thing-
Somebody's got to
okay,
step up
so-
and take over.
The thing I guess based on just that question was the Democrats and the Republicans are the ones who, when you want to contribute $1 to the fund it through your taxes or anything of that nature,
They're already set up.
They're already set up.
How
So
would
that-
the independents gain that same accessibility? What do they have to file with what government agency where? Because Abraham Lincoln didn't fall off a fucking cart. He became a leader and he did it on his own. Cost him his life to do it and go down with a lot of different people.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so just sitting around
Like
and
Colonel
hoping it'll
Sanders.
fix itself isn't the answer here.
Well-
I'm too old to be the leader.
But right now,
Somebody's
there
gotta step
isn't-
up and change our country.
There isn't somebody when you feel you want to get traction in politics, you need to have either a D or an R.
Let me tell you how you
That's
can fix
true.
it. Here's my opinion. Here's my idea. Joe Rogan. I think Joe
would
Rogan.
never- he would
no,
never-
no,
he's
but
already
I
talked
didn't
about
say
it.
he wouldn't. I didn't say would. I mean, I'm saying Joe Rogan could start his own party tomorrow
Well,
with his
He could
social.
run as an independent.
And that would be the third party.
But
And
you-
Joe
you
Rogan.
need
Listen.
a particular
Jo-
head
bullshit.
of that
Joe
party.
Rogan, through his social media presence, doesn't need the tax returns to gain the money. If he chose to go that route and be our next leader and save our country, and I think Trump's got us on the way. We got to find out where we get next. If Joe Rogan stepped up, because he was a Democrat, I think now he leans a little bit right. I think honestly he's probably about an independent.
He is. Yeah.
Okay, but what I'm saying,
he gets very upset when people try and throw him on the right because he's not. He's not on the right.
I think. I don't want to compare myself to Joe Rogan. He's way smarter, more successful than me. But I think we have similar thoughts.
Yeah,
I think he cares about, despite the fact that he's very
big differences, but it's all right.
Sure, of course. But I think baseline, I think he probably worries about that he's older, not as old as me, but he's older, more life experience. I think he probably worries more about the common American citizen than any politician, right or left. And I think he has the ability, he has the access that before, if you didn't have all the tax returns, didn't have the paperwork filled, you couldn't have a party. I think he could create a party on his own overnight.
Yeah.
So if it's not,
how are we doing power-wise, Hazel?
That's fine.
Okay.
So if God, my tongue, I keep biting my tongue in the back. I told you I bit that through my tongue, and I keep getting it when I'm talking.
Yeah.
So I keep feeling like I'm talking. Blah, 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 blah.
You're not.
Well, it hurts every time I hit it. I think that there is a solution. I'm a little more optimistic after today. Somebody could hear this somewhere. I mean, Joe, call me. I mean, listen, even if he doesn't want to do it, he could make it happen. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I think he does care. He's a capitalist. He believes in making your own way. He believes in merit and working your ass off. He struggled. He didn't inherit nothing. I think he's lived the gamut. He believes in capitalism, but I also think he thinks that it's so fucking corrupt to this point. That's what caused him to leave the Democratic Party and go toward the middle. I mean, I think he saw that he wasn't getting anywhere. Nobody's listening. And I think his problem would be the same way on the right. I don't think anybody listened to him there either. But if you have more independence than anybody, reach out, man. Start a fucking list. You know what I mean? Have a convention. Joe Rogan, come on, dude. If you don't want to do it, help us make it happen.
No, he's been asked a bunch about it, and he's talked about it a bit.
So somebody thought of it before I did. Damn it.
Yeah, he's already said. I mean,
I listened
to like 2 weeks ago. He was like, "No, I would never run for president."
He might not, but would he help start?
Not if he's smart.
Yeah. Abraham Lincoln wasn't smart either because he died. But some people have to step up and make it. Remember when I talked to you about the other day? I never expected to live this old. I always thought one of those kind of events would happen to me. Mm-hmm. Just always thought that. Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes at some point in your life, Joe Rogan will get there. At some point in his life, you have to give back. Some point in your life, you have to stop bitching unless you do something about it.
But that's what he's doing with these podcasts.
Yeah, but it's not enough.
No, you
it's
don't.
Not enough.
Listen, I'm telling
Make
you.
a sacrifice, Joe.
What he's doing with that podcast is he is influencing millions of people.
Well, that's why Trump got elected.
It's the most listened to podcast.
It's 100% why Trump got elected.
Okay, but
Joe Rogan. If Joe Rogan got Trump elected, why couldn't he get his selected person elected?
So
do you hear what I'm saying?
He's endorsed Bernie Sanders before that went nowhere.
Yeah, he did do that before.
So I mean, he's tried.
And that's progressive.
Yeah.
Well,
that was before though. He didn't have the popularity and the control he has now.
There's sometimes
he really didn't. Listen, I
was listening to him then.
I wasn't. Your generation.
But listen, why?
I didn't even know what a podcast was.
Do you even think that sometimes you do things when you're in a certain position? I want to just kind of see if I can, how much influence I have. So I'm going to nudge this.
Hey, Russ,
and just see.
I'm going to agree with you for a very rare situation. I think you're right. But I think there's a lot of people that went into our government with good intentions. I think there was a lot. I really, maybe not so much anymore, but I mean, I think over the period, my generation, I think there was a lot of people went into the government with good intentions. I think once they got there,
they realized,
they realized, You know what I mean?
One person isn't going to change anything.
Yeah, so why not keep taking the money and just go along with the flow? And I think the term limits have cost us our country.
1,000%.
I don't think our Congress, I think what you're experiencing in your lifetime is so rare, it's crazy. All of these executive orders, first time I've ever experienced that in my lifetime. But if you don't, Congress don't do anything anymore. When we grew up, Congress was doing shit all the time. New bills all the time. We used to have commercials on Saturday mornings with cartoons talking about how you get a bill through Congress. Usually to sing about it.
I think a lot of it is because it is so divided.
Congress does nothing.
I know, but because they are so.
But they don't. They have no purpose
left-leaning
anymore. None.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well.
So, I think we got come up with some good ideas. Other than Joe Rogan, because I'm aged out. Give me a couple other people that you think are out there that potentially could be somebody to help get our country back on track. Based on
you're part of the podcast.
Yeah. Well, Theo Vaughn's just hilarious.
Well, he's a hillbilly like me.
Lex Friedman has really good.
Who's Lex Friedman? See, there again, I'm lost. Who's that?
You got to know.
Just
who
tell
Lex
me who he
Friedman
is.
I don't.
What is he? Is he a podcaster?
Yeah, but he didn't start that way. I don't even know how to describe Lex Friedman. I've never had to explain who Lex Friedman is. I guess he's a computer scientist, podcaster, research scientist at MIT's Laboratory for Information and Decision. He's very, very smart, and I thought he was an author, which I'm sure he is.
How old is he?
41. He was actually born in Tajikistan. I didn't know that. But he has a lot of very intellectually stimulating
thoughts, ideas,
and the people that he brings on, same way.
I'll check him out.
I mean, Andrew Huberman.
Who's that? Andrew who?
Huberman. You don't know who Huberman is?
No idea. Do you?
Do
you know either of these names?
I've heard the name.
But you don't know who they are.
All right, Huberman is awesome. He's 49, American neuroscientist. I think he works for Harvard, actually, or Stanford, School of Medicine, professor of neurobiology. So he's more so with the health to understand how the brain works and how the body operates and what's good and what's bad.
And thing for getting paralyzed people moving?
I
mean, is that same kind of stuff?
I don't know if he's been involved in that, but he's
same
awesome.
Kind of thoughts. Okay,
yeah, he has a Huberman Lab podcast. And he's
we'll put the links to these two guys, as well as even Joe Rogan. Because if it is a bunch of old farts watching this, we need to expand our
I got news for
cranium.
You. I think a lot of old folks watch Joe Rogan too.
Oh yeah. But if in case they haven't, we'll put the links up.
Okay, we're gonna go set it for 5 minutes. Let's wrap up.
Okay.
So, will you message me when we're done those two names?
Of course.
Huberman. I mean, I'll never remember.
Huberman's
So who is he?
Very smart.
Are these citizens?
So, what?
Are they American citizens?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. He was born in Palo Alto, California, I guess. Went to Stanford. So this one is how sugar and processed foods impact your health. I mean, he has like so many things on sleep. He has so many things on.
Well, I have great hopes for RFK helping us.
Peptide and hormone therapies. The effects of microplastics on your health. How to deal with high conflict people.
So
how to safeguard your hormone health and fertility. How relationships shape your brain. These are all just titles of the podcast.
Wow.
How to improve at learning using neuroscience and AI. Master your sleep and be more alert when awake.
Does he have the social skills to be a president? Okay.
Oh, president. I don't know. I never thought of him like that.
Does he have the social skills to lead an independent party?
He's he's extremely smart, but he's good at podcasting.
Well, I'm saying is sometimes
social.
Intellect sometimes causes people to have less social skills.
He has plenty of great social skills. I mean, his podcast wouldn't be as popular today as it is without it. I wonder if I can see how many people listen to him. Maybe I'm just in a in a bubble that like everyone that I know knows Huberman, but that's just maybe because we're in a bubble. What pets actually want and need? That was on a Monday. I need to listen to that one still. So he's just very into health and wellness and fitness and.
So see, that proves my point. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
It proves my point about
what?
her age group listening to these podcasts and becoming
I
educated
can
understand that.
on. I mean,
But
some of
I-
those subjects are just. I want to know it.
Yeah.
It's,
I swear to God, I believe that people get more knowledge and get better educated listening to these podcasts from just my brief time listening and exploring them than you ever get through a school education. I don't think, other than math and reading.
Do you know Dalton used to listen to Khan Academy, which was a YouTuber in high school, and I swear that's how he learned a lot of what he learned back in the day.
What's it called?
Khan Academy. It was Khan. I don't know
I
if
know,
they do
okay.
it
I
anymore.
heard that. Yeah, but
and
I
it was
don't.
literally a professor who, on YouTube, who would teach you. You can still look it up. All of everything you'd want to know. He's taught, and Dalton would watch those in high school and college, and that's how he learned his stuff.
Okay. So here's what I would say to everybody. Your generation, you need to do a better job of sharing with your kids your experiences through your upbringing. Because what you're telling me is you guys should have done a better job keeping me in the fucking up to speed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No, listen. These are my kids.
I understand, but
if Dalton's listening to stuff like that when he's in high school, I'd like to know that. You know what I mean? For a multitude of reasons, one of which, the amount of time that he spent doing that, he maybe could have spent, like, looking at a book for school or
No,
something.
but he was learning.
No, I get it, but you're making my point for me. I don't think it's the education system that is worth a shit. I don't think it has anything to do anymore with a fair opportunity for our kids in this country to be educated well enough to excel or succeed at anything.
So he does agree that he thinks that you should be able to take a test and get a degree, having taken a test based on what you've learned
Based
by
on
yourself
knowledge.
online.
Yeah,
That was his first question.
and I think that
Or one of the first
I think that probably the detriment that social media that you referred to has caused us. We have to figure out a way, and your generation will be the one to do it. You have to figure out a way to turn that and make that so that it's not so detrimental, that it doesn't have as many negative effects, and use the same, what's the word, source? It's not a source. The same, the accessibility of it. You've got to figure, your generation has to figure out how to manipulate that in a way to help our country.
Yeah.
To get positive out of it. Because as you explained to me, and you have too, Dalton has too, about how the Chinese cheat. You told me the other day, their TikTok for their kids.
They it shuts off at like a certain time of night for
and
everyone.
it's more educational, less.
Yes.
Okay.
Nonsense.
So right now, our
brainwash that people are
country,
listening to or watching.
social media is being controlled by very elite, wealthy companies who worry about global income, and you also have. Am I wrong? You know, everybody that's controlling social media right now, they don't care. Our country's not a priority. Certainly not to China. Certainly not to Zuckerberg. Certainly not to the.
Oh, wait a minute. He makes too much money off of us.
Are you stupid? They make more money off of China than we even splash in a
You
bucket.
can't get Facebook in China. That's sharing ideas.
Okay.
I don't think you can. He's right.
Who's the other one not Zuckerberg, but
Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, what other big elite are you talking about?
What company?
Yeah, I'm. Who is it that's making? Well, first off, who is it? Wait a minute. Why are you guys telling me that Zuckerberg doesn't have any ties to China?
I'm not saying he doesn't have ties to China, but basically Facebook is not a usable thing like we use
Okay.
Facebook for.
How did Zuckerberg, and he's not the only one, Bezos is one of them too, but I mean,
Are you talking about like Apple and what Steve Jobs used to do?
well, not
but
Steve Jobs,
he's
but,
dead, but
yeah, I think probably more Bezos.
Cook, I think is his name now. Yeah.
Bezos.
What is it?
Yeah, Cook. Apple certainly makes more money from China than they do from America. Here's what my
Well, they're switching a lot of their
okay, but
over to
here's
India.
what my very inarticulate. I'm not. I'm worn out, and my brain's not working. My mouth's not cooperating. But I think what happened for me, from an old has-been's perspective, is I think all these capitalists got to the point where they're making so much money that when they went global, that they stopped worrying about America. Mm-hmm. They stopped caring about America, and they let things go on their Facebook or websites or advertisements or whatever on all of this shit to get money in from the rest of the world.
Yeah. It's a lot more money than what Americans can provide.
So
them.
the people in control of all of us are now controlled by the money of the world instead of having a business that is patriotic and prioritizes America first.
Yeah, my last pitch is that, and we can link it too, because I think this is the most important, the documentary Social Dilemma. It used to be on Netflix.
Read it. I saw it. You want to make me watch it.
Everybody
should have to watch that in school.
I completely agree.
And that'll be a required thing.
I think that every child, maybe like a 15-year-old, I don't know, like there's some stuff in that maybe 12-year-olds wouldn't understand. But everyone that uses iPhones or social media or any kind of, technology.
They ought to be forced to learn what's happening to them.
They should be forced to learn, so at least that they know. At least that they're not going into a blind.
Yeah, that was a great tie into all this. I mean, hopefully we can put that link on there, because that was a great.
Well, and parents need to. I mean, it's just as much in our day as parents should have been in charge of sex education. But no, that's something they didn't want to talk about. So you learned it through your friends or learned it through school.
We are not going down that rabbit hole.
I know, but
that's excellent. I mean, it's a great idea. So can we put up links to these guys too?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the cap bio or in the little, yes, you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Get that to
the
us.
description of the.
She'll forward to you. You forward to Hazel.
So
and we're all good.
when Dalton is here on the 28th.
Oh Lord.
He's going to sit through a podcast.
Sorry.
All right.
Good luck.
Okay. No, between now and then, I loved your idea with Greggy. I think that'd be great set. He's entertaining too.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It would be a lot of fun.
And I can do. It will be educational for me. I mean, I've learned a lot from you today. I might learn more from him because I already know a lot of how you think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And his perspective is probably something that I really don't understand.
Yeah.
And I think he's the next generation. I don't think he's your age.
I think he's like.
What's the next one's? The
3 years
Z's?
younger. Oh.
Is that the next one?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Gen Z.
We'll wrap up here in a second.
And
I'll
then
call
Gen
him.
Alpha. But I think he's definitely a Gen Z.
I'm
almost a Gen Z.
I know, as I was telling you. You're almost.
I'm a millennial.
Yeah.
But I was born in 95, but millennial.
You were almost. You're right on the cusp too.
I consider myself a
Gen X.
Boomer X. Mm-hmm. I mean, I really do, because the Boomer was really my mom. Mm-hmm. Somehow I'm raked into my mom's.
Well, you're kind of a Boomer dad.
Well, but also
it's the largest group
yeah,
out
yeah,
there.
and it's the longest. So. Yeah, but I think.
Greg, you'll be beneficial.
And to wrap this up, I think on a personal note, I really valued this time, and I'm glad you shared it with me, because I don't think you kids understand how different your dad is than what you remember.
Oh, wait a minute.
Or know him.
I think she does.
You think I cared about inner city kids, and you think I worried about...
I learned a lot today too.
Okay, so again, stay out of what you don't know. Okay, because we've spent 30 years of our lives together, okay? So I don't think you guys realize the different perspectives I have evolved to have. And I appreciate you giving me the chance to share them with you, because I think it will change your opinion over time when Dad's has this position or that position, or is asking that or telling that. I think you'll have a different opinion or a different perspective of not just maybe take it more seriously now.
Okay.
Maybe some of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So thank you guys.
No, wait a minute. I do have a prediction.
Oh, a prediction.
So,
Okay.
yes. Now, okay, you'll have to educate me here real quick, though. What's the test where they do the mental evaluation?
That Trump just took?
The who?
Trump?
No, not for cognitive stuff. There's one that tests who
Your IQ?
no,
For your personality?
your personality. Yes.
Oh yeah, Myers-Briggs. There's there's a few other ones that test.
Okay. So
See
my
how much
prediction.
smarter my kids are than me.
That's
I don't know.
exactly.
I mean, that's just how she
And-
shoots shit out
We
like
took
that.
it in college and law
You
school.
did? Okay, so all right.
So see, my prediction is that instead of traditional education we see through colleges and so forth, you're going to have companies, because things are going to be so specific, you're going to see companies use that type
do.
of Myers quiz to find the right person
Yep.
that they want to work for them.
And the team
In-
specifically, yeah.
In high school, get that person, then.
Is this like China, where they test everybody when they're in grade school and they tell them they're going to
But
be a
that was
mechanic or
Russia.
an accountant or whatever?
I admired Russia for that.
Okay, keep
You
going.
know,
No, keep
honestly,
going.
Yeah.
but
was
so
Russia.
they
Stay
will to do that. They pick that person, then they teach them exactly, just almost like when you were a tradesman and you went to be a
Trade school.
No.
Joint vocational.
What was it where you worked for somebody in
Internship.
So you have that, then they teach you what you need to know, as opposed to this
I
4
agree.
years of
Yeah.
broad spectrum
I
stuff.
propose
I agree.
they ought to get rid of the bar exam for attorneys, and they ought to have a 2-year, after you graduate law school, you have to go to work for an attorney for 2 years, and you have 2 years, you get your own degree and go on your own.
I think that would probably be very good. You,
Okay,
go,
well, I think the whole educational system sucks. It's worthless. I don't think, unless you're a technical student or a trade student, I think it's worthless. I think it's a waste of time.
And just to bring us back to the bar exam thing, California, Virginia, and Washington, you can study the law under a qualified attorney for a period of time, usually 3 to 4 years, and then take the bar exam without going to law school.
Wow.
That's what I was talking about earlier.
Nice.
Okay. I thought you were going. There's two states. I
you
didn't
don't
listen
take the
well
bar
enough.
exam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You just,
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
Anyway, I can't wait to have Dalton sitting here and then watch Bridget and Dalton back to back. See how that goes.
That'd be fun, yeah.
I'm gonna make sure he watches this though.
Good, great. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Dalton. You made it through.
Listen, thank you very much. I always ask, subscribe,
Like.
comment.
like and comment.
Okay.
Yes.
I just care about the comments. I wish
Share,
somebody
share.
I wish somebody would comment and tell me one way or the other whether you think I'm smart or you think I'm dumb. Don't care either way. Just comment. And thank you for listening.
Thanks.